Chapter 51. Confess if you like it. The next morning, the school hallways were thick with the usual pre-class energy, but Chubai moved through them like a man on a mission. The second he spotted Sumwian, he intercepted her, his face a mask of urgent concern. He pressed her for news about her father, practically begging her to let Su Zheng go to the hospital. Sumwian tried to brush past him. She had no desire to speak with the boy, but Chubai followed her like a persistent fly, buzzing the same questions over and over. Finally, she stopped, letting out a sharp breath of disgust. She explained briefly that with Wang Haoran's help, her father had already undergone a successful operation the night before. Chubai stood frozen, his mouth slightly agape. He had envisioned this as his golden ticket to winning her favor, a moment where he could step in as the hero. Now, the chance was gone, snatched away before he could even play his hand. Rage bubbled up in his chest, and he cursed Wang Haoran's name under his breath. The morning bell rang, and the rhythmic drone of students reading aloud filled the classroom. Chubai slumped into his seat, trying to steady his thoughts. Destroying the bond between Wang Haoran and Sumwian was proving impossible for now. He needed a new strategy. He would focus on the upcoming exams, using his perspective vision to cheat his way to a perfect score. If he could get into the same university as her, he would have years to win her over. Besides, the holidays were coming. With his power, he could amass a fortune in no time. Money was the ultimate equalizer. He glanced towards Sumwian, comforting himself with the common knowledge that she refused to date before graduation. As long as they weren't official, he still had a fighting chance. With renewed determination, he pulled out a sample composition and began to study, knowing that even with his eyes, writing was the one thing he couldn't simply copy. Across the room, Sumwian's attention was anywhere but on her books. Her gaze drifted repeatedly to the empty seat beside her. Wang Haoran was late. She bit her lip, wondering if he had overslept because of the late night at the clinic. She reached into her bag, then remembered she never brought her phone to school. A restless energy took hold of her. Should she ask a classmate to borrow theirs? Yin, why do you keep staring at his empty chair? Wen Jing's voice was a sudden, sharp intrusion. Sumwian jumped slightly, her face heating up. He didn't show up for morning reading. I thought, maybe he overslept. I wanted to call and check on him. Could I use your phone? Wen Jing pulled her phone from her pocket, but held it just out of reach. A playful, knowing smirk touched her lips. Why do you care so much about what Wang Haoran is doing? He stayed out late helping my father, Sumwian stammered, her pulse quickening. It's only right that I'm concerned. Is that really all it is? Wen Jing's disbelief was written across her face. Really? Just give me the phone. Sumwian reached for it, desperate to end the interrogation before Wen Jing read her mind. Look at how nervous you are. I've known you forever, Yin. You're clearly in love with him. Sumwian gasped, her head snapping around to see if any of their classmates had heard. The room remained focused on their books, but she lowered her voice to a panicked whisper. Don't talk nonsense. That look is a confession in itself. Don't worry, I won't tell anyone. Wen Jing leaned in, her breath warm against Sumwian's ear. If you like him, why don't you just tell him? Go and confess. I could never say something so shameful, Sumwian said, shaking her head vigorously. What's shameful about it? Give it a try. I've got your back. No, he doesn't seem to feel that way about me at all. If he rejects me, I'll never be able to show my face again. Coward, Wen Jing teased. You're a school beauty. Any normal man would be falling over himself for you. You think so? Please, have some confidence. You're one of the flowers of this campus. If you confess, I'd give you a 90% chance of success. Sumwian felt her resolve wavering. The idea was intoxicating, yet she quickly shook it off. I shouldn't. Studying has to come first. I don't want to date until after the exams. It's better to wait. Waiting is a mistake. What if he goes after someone else? You heard him the other day. He's already curious about the beauties in the other classes. If you wait, you'll only have regrets. Sumwian didn't answer. Her heart was a storm of indecision. The bell chimed, signaling the end of the period and the start of breakfast. Students began to filter out toward the cafeteria, but Sumwian remained frozen in her seat. She was still lost in her own head when she saw a familiar figure walk through the classroom door. The tension in her chest eased instantly. You missed morning class, she said, offering him a sweet, bright smile. Did you oversleep? Wang Haoran nodded as he approached. I did. I stayed up far too late last night. Have you had breakfast yet? Not yet. Oh, I haven't either, Sumwian said, her voice rising with sudden enthusiasm. Would you like me to go to the cafeteria and get something for you? Wang Haoran paused, his eyes searching hers for a long moment. Sumwin felt a flush of guilt creep up her neck. I was going anyway, she added quickly. I just figured I'd ask if you needed anything while I was there. Thanks, but I don't really have an appetite today. Wang Haoran shook his head. Actually. The word hung in the air. Sumwin felt the confession pressing against her teeth, but her courage failed at the last second. She swallowed it down. What is it? Wang Haoran asked. Nothing. It's nothing. She forced a shy smile and looked away. Wang Haoran watched her. He could practically smell Wen Jing's influence on the girl. Sumwin was on the edge, but she lacked the final push. He decided it was time to provide a catalyst. Instead of sitting down, Wang Haoran turned and walked back out of the classroom. He moved to the corridor balcony, leaning against the railing, as if admiring the view of the campus below. In reality, he was watching the stairs. 5 minutes passed. Then, his target appeared. Qin Yunhan was climbing the stairs, her tall, model-like frame cutting through the crowd of students. She had been heading downstairs earlier, and he knew her classroom was nearby. This was her only way back. As she reached the landing, she caught Wang Haoran's eye. She offered a polite nod, a standard greeting between two people who were loosely acquainted but rarely spoke. She prepared to keep walking, but Wang Haoran spoke up. Qin Yunhan. He made sure to project his voice. Inside the classroom, Sumlian's head snapped toward the window. Qin Yunhan stopped and turned back. Yes. Did you need something? I was just thinking about yesterday, Wang Haoran said, moving closer to her. He didn't care about the content of the conversation. He only cared that Sumwei and could see them together. You went to see the specialist at the clinic. I wanted to ask how you were feeling after everything. Chapter 52. The new protagonist. Mentioning the clinic appointment brought a dark cloud over Qin Yunhan's face. I was just a little startled, she complained, her voice carrying the unmistakable sharp edge of princess syndrome. The psychiatrist said there was no problem at all. I didn't get back until the early morning, and I barely slept. It's so annoying. My dad makes such a fuss over everything. It was a predictable reaction. Born into immense wealth and spoiled by Qin Kai's overbearing protection, she had grown into a classic pampered lady. Ordinarily, Wang Haoran had zero interest in entertaining such a demanding personality. Today, however, she was the bait for a much larger fish. He kept the conversation flowing for Sumwian's benefit. Uncle Qin only acts out of care for you. You shouldn't blame him. Care? It feels more like torture, Qin Yunhan snapped. Do you have any idea what he's doing now? He's trying to find me another bodyguard. Another one? Why the sudden need? I don't know. He's already hired 10 of them, and I managed to get rid of every single one. But he won't give up. This time, he went and found some hillbilly from the mountains. The guy is about 20 years old. Dad says he's going to arrange for him to be in my class, following me around while I study. I'm going to go crazy. Wang Haoran felt his brow furrow. A cold realization began to settle in his gut. Did Uncle Qin mention if this bodyguard was special? Yeah. How did you know that? Were you eavesdropping on us? Wang Haoran didn't answer immediately. His internal narrative was screaming. A 20-year-old expert from the mountains, assigned to protect a beautiful, bratty heiress in high school. It was a textbook trope. This sounded exactly like the setup for a supermaster or schoolflower's personal bodyguard novel. He still had 100 villain points left. It was enough to peek at the truth. Heroine Qin Yunhan. Combat Strength 19. Charm 199. Heroine Halo 532. Skills none. Favorability 10. Ordinary acquaintance. The system confirmed his fears. Qin Yunhan wasn't just a side character. A girl with her beauty and pedigree was a natural magnet for a protagonist. Based on his knowledge of urban web novels, this mountain man would be a tier 1 threat. Unlike Chu Bai, who was a bottom-tier student with a single utility power, a mountain-raised protagonist was usually a combat god with a dozen hidden talents. Wang Haoran felt a flicker of uncertainty. Could a villain tied to Chu Bai's plotline even stand a chance against a high-tier combat protagonist? Why aren't you saying anything? Qin Yunhan prodded, noticing his sudden silence. I didn't hear you say it, I just assumed. Wang Haoran lied smoothly. If Uncle Qin went all the way to the mountains, he must think the man has some extraordinary skill. I don't care if he can fly. He's going to be a total loser. If someone like that follows me around all day, the whole school will laugh at me. If you don't want him there, then don't let him arrive, Wang Haoran suggested. He didn't know if he was ready to face a supermaster yet, so the best move was to sabotage the enrollment entirely. My dad already made the deal. He'll be here in a few days, heading straight into my class. Direct admission? That's your opening. Make sure he fails the entrance requirements. I can't do that. My dad knows the board of directors. Getting a single student in is too easy for him. I actually have a solution for that. Really? Then help me. Qin Yunhan lunged forward, grabbing his arm and shaking it with excitement. I don't know, Wang Haoran teased, hanging the bait just out of reach. If Uncle Qin finds out, he'll blame me. I won't tell a soul. Please, I'm begging you. Fine. But I need more information, and you have to follow my instructions exactly. Wang Haoran leaned in, his voice dropping to a low, conspiratorial whisper. Qin Yunhan leaned closer to hear him. From across the corridor, the sight of the two of them huddled together, practically touching, sent a sharp pang through Sun Weian's chest. Ding. The host has provoked jealousy in heroine Sun Weian. Reward 100 villain points. When he finished giving his instructions, Wang Haoran straightened his blazer. Qin Yunhan was beaming. She quickly insisted on exchanging phone numbers before hurrying back to her classroom, her step light and happy. Wang Haoran watched her go, then turned and walked back into his own classroom without glancing at Sun Weian. He knew the seeds of jealousy were already blooming. Now, he just had to wait. System, he thought as he sat down. If I eliminate Chu Bai, am I safe? Or will there always be someone else? Even if Chu Bai loses his protagonist status, you remain a villain. Conflicts with other protagonists are inevitable. What if I just disappear? Go into seclusion? The villain's halo naturally attracts the hatred of protagonists. You could hide at the ends of the earth, and they would still find a reason to strike you down. Is there any way to avoid the conflict entirely? The host could commit suicide. This damn system is a moron. Wang Haoran cursed silently. How many protagonists are even in this world? Data unavailable. Please explore at your own pace. The world was vast. There could be dozens of chosen ones out there. Was his life destined to be an endless cycle of hunting protagonists just to stay free? He felt a headache coming on. Regardless of the future, his path was set. He was the supervillain. If a protagonist crossed his path, he would crush them. Later that afternoon, while Wang Haoran sat at his desk appearing to study, his phone buzzed. It was a message from Wen Jing's number. I'm waiting for you in the flower garden. I have something to tell you. Sun Weian. He wasn't surprised. Sun Weian had been a restless mess all morning. The catalyst with Qin Yunhan had finally pushed her over the edge. She was ready to reveal her heart. Wang Haoran didn't rush. He turned a few more pages of his book, letting the anticipation build, before slowly rising and making his way toward the garden. Chapter 53. The Confession. The afternoon sun dappled the garden, but the warmth did nothing to soothe Sun Weian's nerves. She smoothed her skirt for the 10th time, her fingers trembling against the fabric. Jing, do you think he missed the message? Wen Jing stood beside her, leaning against a stone pedestal with a look of practiced calm. He saw it. Just wait. But what if he saw it and chose not to come? Then I'll call him myself and drag him here for you. Relax. Sun Weian exhaled, a small, grateful smile touching her lips. Jing, you're so kind. Wen Jing managed a nod, though a sharp bitterness twisted in her chest. I'm so kind it hurts, she thought. Helping my own boyfriend chase you, giving you every assist in the book. She knew that once this became official, her own relationship with Wang Haoran would remain buried in the shadows. But the jealousy was a secondary concern. She had her orders, and she wasn't about to lose Wang Haoran by failing him now. The sound of footsteps on the gravel path cut through their conversation. Wang Haoran approached, his gait steady and relaxed. You two have a good talk, Wen Jing whispered, making a quick exit before the silence could get awkward. Wang Haoran stopped a few feet away, his expression neutral. Is something wrong, calling me all the way out here? Sun Weian's heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. I wanted to thank you again. For last night. My father's surgery went so well because of you. Thank you. It was a small thing. You already thanked me yesterday, Weian. There's no need to be so formal. He waited. He could see the pulse jumping in her neck, the way she bit her lip as she struggled for air. He didn't push. He simply stood there, a quiet, expectant presence in the cooling air. To hell with it, Sun Weian whispered to herself. She looked up, her face flushed a deep, burning crimson. Wang Haoran, the real reason I asked you here is because I like you. I really like you. The air seemed to still. Ding. Heroine Sun Weian has confessed to the host. The original plot has been drastically altered. Reward 1000 villain points. Chu Bai's protagonist halo, -50. Host's villain halo, +50. The notification flashed in Wang Haoran's mind, a record-breaking windfall, but his focus remained on the girl in front of him. Her eyes were bright, shimmering with a mixture of hope and terror. She was breathtaking. For a heartbeat, Wang Haoran felt a genuine tug at his heartstrings. He saw a future where he walked away from the games, where he left Wen Jing behind, and devoted himself entirely to this girl, to be a good man, to love her the way she deserved. He crushed the thought instantly. He was a villain. In every story he had ever read, the moment a villain truly loved a woman, his downfall began. Love was a weakness, a target for a protagonist to strike. She is a tool, he told himself, repeating it like a mantra. A tool to break the protagonist. Nothing more. He forced his expression to soften into a casual, easygoing smile. I like you too, Lian, just like I like the other girls in class. Wen Jing is great, and Qin Yunhan and Mu Zhaozhao are stunning. Sum Wian's face fell, her embarrassment turning into a sharp pout. I'm not joking around. Be serious for once. I am serious, he thought. As long as they're beautiful, I like them all. He kept that thought to himself though. Then I'll be serious. Actually, Sum Wian, don't believe a word he says. The shout shattered the moment. Chu Bai burst from behind a cluster of tall hedges, his face contorted with rage. What are you doing here? Sum Wian snapped. Fear flickered in her eyes. How much did you hear? Wang Haoran is a snake. He's a scumbag, Lian. You can't possibly like someone like him. Chu Bai was trembling. He had grown bored in the classroom, and wandered to the garden to study his composition templates, but his perspective vision had caught the two of them meeting. He hadn't been able to hear them from a distance, but he had spent enough time honing his abilities to read lips with terrifying accuracy. He knew exactly what she had said. Chu Bai, stop lying, Sum Lian said, her voice shaking with anger. How dare you call him a bad person? Are you supposed to be the good one? I am 1,000 times better than him. You'll only ever find real happiness with me. Sum Wian let out a harsh, disbelieving laugh. The sheer narcissism of the statement left her breathless. You're delusional. I don't like you. I actually can't stand you. Why would I ever be happy with you? Wang Haoran stepped forward, glancing at Sum Lian with an unreadable expression. Actually, Chu Bai might be right. I'm really not a good person in the way you think. Knowing that, do you still like me? He was curious. If Chu Bai wanted to play the morality card, Wang Haoran would let him. He would let the protagonist watch as his virtue failed him. Sum Wian didn't hesitate for more than a second. Even if you aren't a good person, I still like you. Ding. The host has successfully attacked the protagonist Chu Bai, causing a mental collapse. Reward 200 villain points. You're crazy. You've lost your mind. Chu Bai screamed. What I do is none of your business. Leave us alone. Chu Bai realized he was losing her. He turned his fury toward Wang Haoran. I love her too. If you're actually a man, let's settle this. A one-on-one contest. The loser walks away from her forever. Wang Haoran laughed. The sound was cold and genuine. You want another bet? Didn't you lose the last one just a few days ago? What happened to that men's agreement? This is different. This is about her. Muyan isn't a trophy, Chu Bai. She isn't a commodity to be traded or won in a fight. She is a person with her own thoughts and her own heart. She chose me. Why would I compete for something I already have? But if you insist on a contest, we should ask her. Does that sound fair? Chu Bai opened his mouth to argue, but no words came out. The logic was a trap he couldn't escape. Beside them, Sum Lian looked at Wang Haoran with eyes full of adoration, her heart swelling at his defense of her dignity. Ding. The host has successfully charmed heroine Sum Lian. Reward 100 villain points. Chapter 54. No promise, no rejection. Chu Bai sensed the shift in the air. He knew he couldn't provoke Wang Haoran into a formal competition, and the humiliation of the moment was becoming unbearable. He turned to leave, his shoulders hunched in defeat. Wait a minute, Wang Haoran said. Chu Bai stopped in his tracks, surprise flickering across his face. You can't use Sum Lian as a bargaining chip, but you were right about one thing. If you're a man, you shouldn't be afraid. You wanted a contest? Let's have one, just between us. A wave of predatory joy washed over Chu Bai. Wang Haoran had crushed him in social status, wealth, and influence, but in a physical confrontation, he was certain he could grind this pampered rich heir into the dirt. Wang Haoran, stop. Sum Lian stepped forward, her voice tight with worry. Have you forgotten how Chu Bai handled Fan Jian and the others? You can't beat him. Chu Bai flexed his hands, a smug grin spreading across his lips. Don't worry, Muyan. I'll be careful. I won't bruise his pretty face too badly. Come on, Wang Haoran replied. He dropped into a sudden, grounded stance. He stomped into a horse stance, one hand extending forward, while the other pulled back, guarding his midline. Chu Bai recoiled slightly, his eyes narrowing. Wing Chun, Wing Chun, Wang Haoran, please, advise me. Haha, been watching too many movies? Chu Bai laughed, falling into a messy, aggressive posture of his own. Qin Family boxing. Chu Bai. Advise me. Chu Bai lunged. He threw a wild, haymaker punch, the kind of clumsy strike learned from street brawls and back alleys. He never even touched Wang Haoran's clothes. In a single, fluid motion, Wang Haoran redirected the force and knocked him to the ground. Before Chu Bai could scramble up, a frantic rain of fists descended. Wang Haoran's knuckles blurred, striking Chu Bai's chest and shoulders with rhythmic, punishing speed. Chu Bai curled into a ball, his arms shielding his face like a human sandbag. I admit defeat. I admit defeat. Chu Bai screamed, his voice cracking with desperation. Wang Haoran continued the barrage for 10 more seconds before stepping back. He exhaled a long, steady breath. A deep sense of satisfaction settled in his bones. Ding. The host has defeated the protagonist Chu Bai in frontal combat. Reward 800 villain points. Chu Bai's protagonist Halo -37. Host's villain Halo +37. Ding. Chu Bai's current protagonist Halo is 0. He has lost his status as a protagonist. A surge of triumph hit Wang Haoran. Finally, the first protagonist was dismantled. He watched Chu Bai struggle to find his footing. Even without the halo, the boy still possessed his perspective vision. He had been suppressed and humiliated, and he had lost the girl he desired. That kind of hatred didn't just vanish. If Chu Bai used his power to build a fortune and return for revenge, he could still be a nuisance. Poison was one option, but Wang Haoran had a more creative end in mind. Without the protection of his protagonist luck, Chu Bai's perspective was now a double-edged sword. Wealth was a possibility, but so was catastrophe. The world was full of obsessed researchers and scientific lunatics who would give anything to dissect the mysteries of a human who could see through walls. Wang Haoran made a mental note to anonymously leak the news to the right people. Chu Bai stood up slowly, his face burning with shame. He couldn't even look at Sun Weian. With a final, bitter glance, he turned and walked away, his spirit broken. Only Wang Haoran and Sun Weian remained in the garden. You know Wing Chun? Sun Weian asked, her voice breathless with excitement. Where did you learn that? I studied the films, Wang Haoran lied smoothly. Is it impressive? It was amazing. She gave him a fervent thumbs up, her eyes shimmering with newfound admiration. Let's get back to class. Wang Haoran turned away, avoiding her gaze. He had used Wenjing to push Sun Weian into this confession to break Chu Bai's spirit. Now that the job was done, he had no intention of committing to her. He needed to keep his options open for the other heroines. Sun Weian didn't move. She stood her ground, her face flushing as she brought up the topic he was trying to dodge. What do you think about what I told you just now? Study is the most important thing right now, Wang Haoran said, his tone neutral and distant. I haven't thought about long-term relationships yet. Let's wait until after the exams to talk about this. It was a classic non-answer, neither a promise nor a rejection. But for a villain, it was a necessity. To claim the rewards of the other heroines like Qin Yunhan, he had to remain single on the surface. Yet, he couldn't push Sun Weian away. Her heroine halo was a magnet for future protagonists, and through her, he could continue to harvest points. Sun Weian looked down, her shoulders sagging with disappointment. She didn't press him. Perhaps he was right, she told herself. It was an impulsive time. Over in a nearby classroom, Qin Yunhan and her best friend Mu Zhaozhao were huddled over a phone, watching cartoons. The quiet was broken by a vibration. Uncle Li was calling. Uncle Li was the Qin family's loyal housekeeper of 20 years. He handled the chores, the daily logistics, and drove Qin Yunhan to school. To her, he was more like family than staff. Uncle Li is at the school gate, Qin Yunhan said, standing up. He probably brought me something to eat. Let's go, Zhao Zhao. Mu Zhaozhao slumped against her desk, her expression lazy. Sister Yunhan, it's so far. You go. I'll wait here. The two girls had been inseparable since childhood. Mu Zhaozhao was a year younger, hence the honorific. Humph. You used to drink papaya milk every day to grow, and now look at you. You're too heavy to move, Qin Yunhan teased, though her eyes betrayed a hint of envy at her friend's curves. I regret it too, Mu Zhaozhao shot back with a wink. If only I could give half of it to you, you'd be perfect. Qin Yunhan tried to swat at her head, but Mu Zhaozhao dodged with practiced ease. As Qin Yunhan stepped into the hallway, a boy with a sleazy grin intercepted her. Where are you off to, Yunhan? Zhen Wei, stay away from me. It's none of your business, she snapped, not even breaking her stride. I wish I could stay away, Zhen Wei called out, following her at a 5-meter distance. But my heart keeps dragging me back to you. Qin Yunhan felt a wave of nausea. She ignored him, but the boy trailed her like a shadow all the way to the school gate. There she saw Uncle Li. Standing beside him was a young man in tattered, dusty clothes. He seemed to be staring off into space, lost in thought. But when his eyes landed on Qin Yunhan, they lit up with a sudden, sharp intensity. The girls in the city really are something else, the young man muttered to himself. Better skin than Widow Zhang back home. The old man wasn't lying after all. Chapter 55. The master from the mountains has arrived. Sun Weian and Wang Haoran finished their conversation and parted ways. Sun Weian hurried back toward the classroom with Wen Jing, leaving Wang Haoran to wander the campus grounds alone for a while. He needed the fresh air to clear the static from his mind. Eventually, he turned back toward the main building, but a familiar figure intercepted him halfway. The boy Zhen Wei was a relative on his mother's side, a distant cousin who shared just enough blood to be a nuisance. Today, Zhen Wei looked like he had been dragged through a swamp. Dirt caked his clothes, and a sour, disgusting odor radiated from him in waves. Wang Haoran instinctively covered his nose and stepped back. Cousin, you have to avenge me. Zhen Wei's voice was thick with indignation. Wang Haoran's brow furrowed. This relative was notorious for using the Wang family name to bully others on campus. He only ever appeared when he was in over his head, and his last visit had been months ago. Who did you provoke this time? Wang Haoran asked, his voice dripping with impatience. I didn't do anything. This guy just kicked me out of nowhere. Then he grabbed me and tossed me straight into the trash. People don't beat you up for no reason, Wang Haoran countered. Tell the truth or get out of my sight. I am telling the truth. It's the honest truth. Fine. What did this person look like? Zhen Wei paused, searching his memory. He was, I don't know, kind of handsome, but not nearly as good looking as you, cousin. He looked about our age, but his clothes were complete rags. Faded, patched up, and dirty. He looked like a migrant worker who just walked off a construction site. Wang Haoran grew suspicious. A beggar-clothed teenager with enough confidence to assault someone on a private school campus? The pieces were starting to fit a very specific, very dangerous pattern. Did he say anything to you? He warned me to stay away from Qin Yunhan. Told me to stop bothering her or he'd beat me every time he saw me. And he told me to tell you to watch out. He called you a piece of trash. Said if I called you over for help, he'd just beat both of us together. Wang Haoran remained silent, his expression unreadable. Cousin, please. Call some people. Let's go teach that kid a lesson together. You got beaten up for being a nuisance, Wang Haoran snapped. If you have a problem, tell a teacher. Why tell me? I'm an honors student. I don't participate in street brawls. Now, get lost. He turned and walked away without looking back. Inside, he was cursing. This villain Halo was a magnet for trouble. He hadn't even met this new arrival, yet he was already being branded a target. The person Zhen Wei described was almost certainly another protagonist. Without knowing the full extent of the boy's combat power or luck, a direct confrontation was a fool's errand. Taking a blind swing at a protagonist was the fastest way to find yourself at the bottom of a trash can alongside Zhen Wei. Once he was clear of his cousin's sight, Wang Haoran pulled out his phone and dialed Qin Yunhan. 5 minutes later, she appeared, running toward him until she was doubled over, gasping for air. I was just looking for you. She panted, unable to finish the sentence. Easy. Take a breath. Say it slowly. My dad's bodyguard. He's here. Wang Haoran's eyes narrowed. I thought you said he wouldn't arrive for a few days. Why the sudden change? My dad said he'd be late, but he showed up early. I don't know how. Did you get a name? Xiao Yifeng. He's dressed in rags. So rustic, like a complete country bumpkin. I don't want someone like that following me around. You have to help me, Haoran. Xiao Yifeng. The name alone practically screamed protagonist. Wang Haoran sighed. I can help, but I need the full picture. Was it Xiao Yifeng who attacked Zhen Wei? Qin Yunhan nodded quickly. That bumpkin has a mouth on him. He told me that as long as he's protecting me, not even the gods could hurt me. I didn't believe him, so I joked that if he was so tough, he should drive away that fly, Zhen Wei. He didn't say a word. He just hopped over the school fence, kicked Zhen Wei, and threw him into the trash like he was handling a chicken. She paused, looking a bit sheepish. I know Zhen Wei is your cousin. I was just talking trash. You aren't angry, are you? Why would I be angry? Wang Haoran's voice was righteous. Zhen Wei is a dreamer if he thinks he can chase a girl like you. He deserved it. If he ever bothers you again, tell me. I'll handle him myself. Qin Yunhan's eyes lit up. She had always found Zhen Wei's persistence nauseating, and knowing that Wang Haoran supported her made the stress of the day melt away. Ding. Heroine Qin Yunhan's favorability has increased by 10. Current total 20. Very friendly. Ding. The host has altered the plot direction. Reward 200 villain points. By the way, Qin Yunhan said, her excitement returning. You said you had a way to stop him from enrolling. Is it ready? I didn't expect him to show up early. I haven't pulled the trigger yet, but I'll have it settled by the end of the day. Thank you so much. She let out a long sigh of relief. Don't get too comfortable, Wang Haoran warned, his voice cooling. Even if he can't get into the school, you aren't rid of him yet. You're right. She nodded, her face falling. So what do I do? Where do you stay at night? My dad bought me a villa near the school. I usually stay there. If you don't want to live under the same roof as Xiao Yifeng, then whatever you do, do not go back to that villa tonight. It was a classic trope, the bodyguard and the school beauty sharing a home. Qin Kai would undoubtedly arrange for them to live together under the guise of protection. Even if she hated him now, constant proximity and a few well-timed rescues would eventually turn that hatred into love. Wang Haoran intended to strangle that possibility in its crib. But Zhao Zhao and I are the only ones living there, Qin Yunhan argued. My father wouldn't let a man move in with us. New Zhao Zhao, another potential heroine. That settled it. Don't underestimate him. Since your father trusts this young man to protect your life, he's already comfortable with him. Living under the same roof is the logical next step for a man like Qin Kai. Qin Yunhan's face pale as she realized he was likely right. Then if I don't go to the villa, where am I supposed to stay? Wang Haoran offered a mysterious, knowing smile. Somewhere Xiao Yifeng can't follow. Chapter 56. The Silent Blockade. Night fell over the city, and the upper floors of the high-end office buildings glowed like lanterns against the dark sky. Inside one such office, the air was cool and smelled of expensive perfume and paper. Miss Tang, regarding the purchase of the Imperial Green Jade. Miss Tang? Miss Tang. Tang Bingyun sat behind her desk, her chin resting on her hand. Her skin looked like snow against the dark leather of her chair. She was lost in a daydream, her eyes unfocused, until her assistant's voice finally cut through the fog. Ah, Tang Bingyun blinked, straightening her posture. What did you just say? The 120 million yuan for the emerald purchase has been remitted to the designated account. Here are the proof materials. If everything looks correct, please sign them so I can return the file to the finance department. The assistant handed over several large sheets of paper. Tang Bingyun took them, her eyes scanning the figures with practiced efficiency. She reached for a pen, scrawled her name with a sharp, elegant flourish, and handed the documents back. The assistant took the papers and slipped out, the door clicking shut with a soft, final thud. Left alone, the icy professional mask Tang Bingyun wore began to melt. A sweet, uncharacteristic smile touched her lips as a handsome young face occupied her thoughts. She allowed herself a few minutes of quiet contemplation before her phone shattered the silence. The sudden noise brought the frost back to her expression. She reached for the device, ready to snap at whoever dared to disturb her peace. But the second she saw the caller ID, the cold vanished. Aunt Tang, are you busy? Not at all, she replied, her voice softening instantly. I've already had the 120 million sent over. Did it reach you? I just received the notification. What are you up to? Just finished some paperwork. And you? Finished dinner, getting ready for evening self-study. Actually, I wanted to ask a favor. It might be a bit of a reach. Tang Bingyun leaned back, her smile widening. Whatever it is, just say the word. No matter how difficult, I'll make it happen for you. It's not that hard, really. It just requires a word from you. Oh, tell me more. 10 o'clock that evening. Inside a small, brightly lit villa, Qin Kai sat on the sofa opposite Xiao Yifeng. The young man from the mountains was looking around with wide, hungry eyes, like a traveler who had stumbled into a palace. Yifeng, this is where Yunhan lives, Qin Kai explained. You'll stay here from now on to ensure her safety. Uncle Qin, you really trust me that much? I know your character, and I trust the man who sent you. The villa is a bit small, just 2 floors, and Yunhan's friend Mu Zhaozhao lives here as well. It might be a bit crowded, but there are plenty of rooms. Mu Zhaozhao? Xiao Yifeng asked. Yunhan's childhood friend. You haven't met her yet, but they should be back from school any minute. Xiao Yifeng nodded, trying to look professional while his mind raced. Living with 2 beautiful city girls was a dream he hadn't dared to have back in the village. Your salary will be 50,000 yuan a month, Qin Kai added. If that's not enough, we can negotiate. 50,000. Xiao Yifeng's eyes nearly popped out of his head. My old master used to give me tasks where the employers only paid 100 a month for 10 times the work. You're incredibly generous, Uncle Qin. Qin Kai offered a small, knowing chuckle. He suspected the old master had been pocketing the difference all those years. He glanced at his watch. They should have been through the door by now. Right on cue, the electronic chime of the fingerprint lock rang out. Xiao Yifeng straightened his tattered shirt, his heart racing. He had seen Qin Yunhan earlier that day, and had been floored by her beauty. He couldn't wait to see her friend. On the surface, he looked like an honest country boy, but inside, a certain wretched excitement was taking hold. The door opened and Li Bo, the housekeeper, hurried in alone. "Where are the girls?" Qin Kai asked, frowning at the empty space behind the man. "I went to pick them up, but no one was there," Li Bo reported, his face a mask of confusion. "I called the eldest lady, and she told me flat out that she's moved into the school's girls' dormitory. She said she isn't coming back to the villa anymore." Ding. The host has prevented the protagonist Xiao Yifeng from living with the heroines Qin Yunhan and Mu Zhaozhao. Plot direction altered. Reward 200 villain points. In a luxurious bathroom across town, Wang Haoran stepped into a steaming tub. The notification brought a smirk to his face as he sank into the water. "She must be throwing a tantrum," Qin Kai sighed. He pulled out his phone and dialed his daughter's number, only to be met with a mechanical voice. "The user you have dialed is currently powered off." "Sir, what do we do?" Li Bo asked. "She's spoiled. She won't last 3 days in a dormitory before she comes crawling back for a proper bed. Let her have her fit." Qin Kai turned back to Xiao Yifeng. "In the meantime, I'll arrange for you to join Yunhan's class tomorrow. It'll make protecting her much easier. I didn't exactly finish school in the countryside, Uncle Qin. Will they even let me in? It's a private school. I have a close relationship with the school's manager, Tang Bingyun. A single phone call is all it takes." Qin Kai confidently dialed a new number. He waited, expecting a professional greeting. Instead, the same mechanical voice returned. "The call you have dialed has been switched off. Please try again later." Qin Kai's expression soured. It was one thing for a teenager to turn off her phone. It was another thing entirely for a high-powered CEO like Tang Bingyun, who managed dozens of businesses and kept her line open 24 hours a day, to be unreachable. A cold realization hit him. She hadn't turned off her phone. She had blocked him. "Did I offend her recently?" he muttered, racking his brain for any slight. "Uncle Qin, can I still go to school tomorrow?" We might have to move a little slower on that one," Qin Kai admitted, his face reddening with embarrassment. Ding. The host has successfully sabotaged the protagonist's enrollment. Reward 200 villain points. "Comfortable," Wang Haoran whispered, leaning his head back against the edge of the tub. The game was just beginning. Chapter 57. Top Hacking Techniques. Fresh from a shower, Wang Haoran lounged on his bed. He called up the system panel with a mental command, the translucent display shimmering in the dim room. The massive gains from the previous day had replenished his resources. After nearly draining his reserves, he now sat on a comfortable stash of 2,800 villain points. The familiar itch of the gambler took hold. System, spend 500 points on a lottery draw. Unfortunately, the host did not draw a reward. Would you like to try again for another 500 points? Continue. Unfortunately, the host did not draw a reward. Would you like to try again for another 500 points? One more time. Ding. Congratulations. The host has drawn top hacking technology, a skill worth 2,000 villain points. Activate now. A solid win. The investment had paid off. Activate, Wang Haoran commanded. An explosion of complex data flooded his mind. Algorithms, encryption protocols, and backdoors surged through his consciousness. The sensation lasted 30 seconds, a dizzying whirlwind of information that left him breathless. When the pressure subsided, the world looked different. In half a minute, Wang Haoran had evolved from a casual computer user into a world-class digital predator. In the modern era, information is the ultimate weapon. For a villain, these skills were the perfect tools for dismantling a protagonist. He sat up, flipped open his laptop, and began to code. The room filled with the rhythmic, aggressive clacking of keys. He worked for a full hour, his fingers dancing across the board until the task was complete. His joints ached with a dull soreness, but the result was worth the strain. He had created a masterpiece. The virus focused specifically on mobile operating systems. Once a device was infected, it would become an open book. Real-time GPS tracking, active eavesdropping, and remote access to both front and rear cameras would all stream directly to his terminal. This was his insurance policy for Qin Yunhan. Standard super bodyguard tropes dictated that danger would constantly find her, allowing Xiao Yifeng to swoop in, play the hero, and slowly win her heart. Wang Haoran had no intention of letting that script play out. If he wanted to intercept the protagonist's opportunities, He needed to know her every move before she even made them. He ran a test on a spare phone. The connection remained rock solid and completely invisible. The most advanced security software on the market wouldn't even register its presence. The following morning, the pleasant melody of the campus radio signaled the start of the day. In the girls' dormitory, the atmosphere was far from pleasant. Qin Yunhan and Mu Zhaozhao shared a single, narrow bed. Both girls looked exhausted, their eyes puffy from a restless night. They were used to high thread count sheets and king-sized memory foam, not the thin, lumpy mattresses provided by the school. Sister Yunhan, let's go back to the villa tonight, Mu Zhaozhao whined, rubbing a kink in her neck. I can't sleep like this. Do you want to live with that hillbilly? Qin Yunhan gritted her teeth, her resolve wavering but still holding. I'm not going back until he's gone. She wasn't sure how long she could last. The dormitory was overcrowded, and squeezing two people onto a twin bed meant every turn was a struggle. Her shoulders were stiff, and the lack of privacy was suffocating. Fine, Mu Zhaozhao sighed, defeated. But where are the toothbrushes? The towels? The cups? Qin Yunhan froze. As an eldest daughter accustomed to having her every need anticipated, the concept of packing daily necessities had never crossed her mind. You brought me here and didn't prepare anything? Mu Zhaozhao's expression was pure gloom. How are we supposed to wash our faces? There's a shop on campus. We'll just buy what we need. The shop doesn't open for another hour. Then, what do? We go back to the villa, Mu Zhaozhao suggested again, hope flickering in her eyes. Qin Yunhan hesitated. The lure of a hot shower and a soft bed was becoming nearly irresistible. Just as she was about to surrender, her phone buzzed. It was Wang Haoran. Come down to the dormitory entrance, he said when she answered. I brought some things you might need. Oh, I'm coming right now. Qin Yunhan practically sprinted down the stairs, smoothing her messy hair as she ran. Wang Haoran stood by the gate, holding several large, transparent plastic bags. Inside were new cups, toothbrushes, towels, and most importantly, a phone charger. How did you know? She asked, her eyes wide with genuine surprise. I took a lucky guess, Wang Haoran replied with a smirk. It wasn't hard to imagine a princess like her forgetting the basics of survival. Not enjoying the dormitory life? It's awful, she complained, her voice full of resentment. I didn't sleep a wink. This isn't a place for humans to live. Wang Haoran kept his smile polite, while his mind scoffed at her arrogance. If this wasn't a place for humans, what did that make the hundreds of other girls living in the building? Still, he kept the play going. If the shared dorm is too much, I can arrange a faculty suite for you. What's that like? Spacious. A private bedroom, a living room, and your own bathroom. It has a real bed and, more importantly, air conditioning. It beats a ceiling fan in a cramped room. That sounds perfect. Please, help me get that room. If I can last until the exams are over and get rid of Xiao Yifeng, I'll give you a massive gift. What kind of gift? Qin Yunhan thought for a moment, her eyes suddenly sparkling with mischief. I'll give you Zhao Zhao as your girlfriend. Isn't that a big enough present? Sure, I'll be waiting, Wang Haoran replied casually. He knew she wasn't serious. Mu Zhaozhao was a person, not an object to be gifted. But he wasn't doing this for a reward. He was doing it for control. I have to go. Message me when the room is ready. Qin Yunhan waved a hand and disappeared back into the building like a whirlwind. Wang Haoran watched her go, his gaze turning cold. She truly viewed him as a convenient tool, a high-end delivery service for her whims. She was far too used to being worshipped by her circle of licking dogs. Just you wait, princess, he thought. I'm going to cure that attitude of yours. Chapter 58. The mantis, the cicada, and the oriole. Qin Yunhan hurried back to the dormitory, the plastic bags crinkling in her grip. She burst through the door, eager to share the spoils with Mu Zhaozhao. Zhao Zhao, look. We're saved. Mu Zhaozhao poked her head out from under a thin blanket, her expression far from joyful. She eyed the new supplies with a suspicious squint. Yunhan, why is Wang Haoran being so nice to you? What's his angle? Angle? Qin Yunhan tossed a brand new towel onto the bed, her chin lifting with practiced vanity. I'm naturally stunning, Zhao Zhao. Beautiful girls don't need a reason for boys to do favors for them. So, are you actually interested in him? He's handsome enough, and his personality isn't half bad. He makes a fine friend, but it hasn't gone further than that. Qin Yunhan paused, a mischievous giggle bubbling up as she remembered their conversation. Actually, I told him that once Xiao Yifeng is gone, I'd give you to him as a girlfriend to say thanks. Mu Zhaozhao's face went pale. The teasing remark hit like a physical blow. Sister Yunhan, don't even joke about that. You know I hate those wealthy, handsome types the most. I was just teasing him. I'd never actually give you away. Qin Yunhan's smile faltered as she saw the genuine distress in her friend's eyes. I'm sorry. I won't make that joke again. She knew the history. When Mu Zhaozhao was only 12, she had been the one to find her cousin's body in a bathroom, wrists slashed after being discarded by a rich playboy. That image was burned into Xiao Zhao's soul, leaving a permanent scar that made her recoil from anyone who fit that mold. Near the school gates, a nondescript van sat idling. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of cheap cigarettes and malice. 3 young men sat in the shadows, their eyes hardened by years of street life. Is this the one? The youth with a pockmarked face, Maisie, stared at the photograph in his hand. He looked toward the tallest of the trio. What's her story? Daughter of Qin Kai. You know, the Qin group, the tall leader replied. Maisie's gaze lingered on the girl's features in the photo, a slow, greasy grin spreading across his face. She's a real beauty. First time I've seen a girl this high class up close. When we snatch her, I wouldn't mind a taste. Keep your hands off her, the tall man snapped. The client was clear. We grab her, we hold her, but we don't touch a single hair. If she's bruised, we lose the 2 million yuan final payment. Maisie let out a long, disappointed sigh. What a waste. Sigh all you want, the shortest man chimed in from the back. With 2 million in our pockets, you can find a dozen girls like her at the clubs. Let's just focus on the ticket. True enough. Maisie lit another cigarette, his mood lifting at the thought of the payday. After this job, we're living like kings. They took turns watching the gate, oblivious to the fact that they were being hunted. Not far away, tucked inside a plain white sedan, Xiao Yifeng watched them through the glass. Qin Kai hadn't been able to force the enrollment through yet, but Xiao Yifeng wasn't one to sit idle. He had convinced the Qin family driver to let him take the car to scout the perimeter. His instincts had been right. He spotted the 3 suspects within an hour. With his training, he could have stepped out of the car and neutralized the threat in seconds. He could have ended the crisis before it even began. But Xiao Yifeng stayed in his seat. The memory of the lonely villa from the night before sat heavy in his mind. It was a beautiful house, but it felt hollow without the girls. He needed them there. He needed them to realize they couldn't survive without him. He would wait. He would let these thugs make their move. Let them trap Qin Yunhan until she felt the cold breath of terror on her neck. Then and only then would he descend like a savior. Once she realized how dangerous the world was, she wouldn't resist living under his roof. In fact, she'd probably beg for it. He leaned back, a wretched, self-satisfied smile playing on his lips as he imagined himself as the hero of the dramas he used to watch back in the village. The loyal bodyguard, the rescued princess, and the inevitable romance. 10 minutes remained before the morning bell. In the back of the classroom, Wang Haoran wore a sleek Bluetooth headset, his fingers methodically clearing out the stack of love letters that had been stuffed into his desk overnight. He didn't read them. He simply gathered the colorful envelopes and dropped them into the trash bin. Di-di-di. A mechanical chime rang in his ear. Virus implanted successfully. Connecting, please wait. Connection established. Wang Haoran leaned back, a faint smile touching his lips. Qin Yunhan had plugged her phone into the charger he gave her. The hardware-level virus hidden in the circuitry had bypassed her security and made its home in her operating system. Now, her life was an open book. The headset crackled with the ambient noise of a crowded classroom. Over the din, Qin Yunhan's voice emerged, clear and crisp. Wang Haoran was actually so thoughtful, bringing me a charger. The sound of tapping followed. She was scrolling through her phone while it charged. Qin Yunhan, you haven't had breakfast yet. I bought this for you. I've got milk, dumplings, the works. Wang Haoran recognized the voice instantly. Zen Wei. I'm on a diet. I don't want it. Take it away, Qin Yunhan replied, her voice dripping with boredom and disgust. Skipping meals is bad for your health. Just a few bites? You're so annoying. Get out of my face. A loud crack echoed through the headset. Something heavy hit the floor. Wang Haoran could picture it Qin Yunhan slapping the tray out of Zen Wei's hands. Then came the rhythmic thud crunch of shoes stomping into plastic, spilling milk and crushing dumplings into the floor tiles. She wasn't just rejecting the food, she was obliterating it. The girl really had no sense of grace. Qin Yunhan, I'm just trying to be nice. Zen Wei's voice was thick with hurt. How can you be so cruel? I'm just like this. Got a problem with that? No, no problem. You can step on it all you want. I could never stay mad at you. Wang Haoran rolled his eyes. The desperation in Zen Wei's voice was pathetic. Not mad? Fine. I have a gift for you then. Wait right there. The audio cut into silence as Qin Yunhan stepped away. A second later, Wang Haoran's own phone buzzed with a text. Come to my classroom, now. The arrogance was staggering. She didn't ask, she commanded. Wang Haoran ignored the message, picking up a textbook and turning a page as if he hadn't seen a thing. Moments later, he caught a flash of movement at the classroom door. Qin Yunhan stood there, her eyes scanning the rows until they landed on him. She waved her hand frantically, trying to catch his eye. Wang Haoran didn't look up. He kept his eyes on the text, a silent spectator in a game he was already winning. Morning study was in session, and the room was quiet. Qin Yunhan couldn't yell, and she was too proud to walk in and approach him directly. She stood in the doorway, fuming in silence. Chapter 59. The Mantis, the Cicada, and the Oriole. Beauty? Hey, Su Ziahua? Sum Wean. Qin Yunhan shouted from the doorway, her voice carrying across the quiet rows of desks to a girl seated far from the entrance. Sum Wean looked up from her textbook. Seeing the school's most famous heiress beckoning to her, she rose and walked to the door. Hello, Sum Wean said, her tone polite, but guarded. Is something the matter? They were aware of each other, two suns in the same academic solar system, but they had never actually exchanged words until now. Do me a favor and call Wang Haoran out for me, Qin Yunhan commanded. Just tell him I'm looking for him. Inside the classroom, Wang Haoran sat with his nose buried in a book, projecting the image of a diligent scholar. A chime echoed in his mind. Ding. The host has made the heroine Sum Wean feel jealous. 100 villain points awarded. He suppressed a smile. This was an unexpected bonus. He had ignored Qin Yunhan's text specifically to make things difficult for her, never guessing she would recruit his primary target as a messenger. Sum Wean walked back to her desk, her expression tight. She leaned over toward Wang Haoran. There's a beautiful woman waiting for you at the door. Even without his enhanced senses, Wang Haoran could have smelled the sudden, sour air of envy rolling off her. Really? He beamed, sitting up with feigned excitement. Sum Wean's lips pulled into a sharp pout. Ding. The host has made the heroine Sum Wean feel jealous. 100 villain points awarded. This girl is a regular jealousy machine, Wang Haoran thought. She's far too easy to farm for points. He stood up and strolled out into the hallway. Go educate that Zhen Wei, Qin Yunhan demanded the moment he arrived. He's driving me crazy. Fine. Let's go. He didn't waste words. He had made a promise, and he intended to keep it. They walked to Qin Yunhan's classroom. Wang Haoran stepped inside and caught his cousin's eye. Come out here. Now. Zhen Wei, who had been preening in anticipation of a reward from Qin Yunhan, looked confused. He followed Wang Haoran into the quiet corridor. Stay away from Qin Yunhan, Wang Haoran said, his voice flat and final. Stop harassing her. Cousin, I'm not harassing her, Zhen Wei protested, shaking his head. I love her. I'm pursuing her. If I just keep at it, she'll see my sincerity eventually. Wang Haoran didn't hold back. Look in a mirror, Zhen Wei. You're crooked. You think you're going to land a girl like her? A donkey must have kicked you in the skull. Even if you were handsome, your family's assets are a drop in the bucket compared to hers. She's the sole heir to a $10 billion empire. You're a second-generation rich kid from a family that barely cracks 8 figures. Know your place. Zhen Wei looked down, his face flushed. Give it up. Go find a girl from an ordinary family who will actually appreciate your money. Why are you so determined to be a pathetic lapdog? Zhen Wei glanced up, a spark of realization in his eyes. Cousin, you've said all this, but is it just because you want her for yourself? Quick on the draw, aren't you? Wang Haoran thought. Aloud, he said, that's right. I've claimed her. If you get in my way, I'll ruin you. I get it, Zhen Wei said softly, his posture slumping. I won't bother her again. But can you promise me one small thing? What now? Zhen Wei leaned in close, whispering, once you actually get her into bed, could you maybe film a short video for me to see? Get lost. Wang Haoran planted a swift kick on Zhen Wei's backside. He had no such perverse hobbies, and even if he did, he certainly wasn't sharing. Fine. No video. You didn't have to kick me. Zhen Wei scurried back into his classroom, looking utterly defeated. Ding. The host has intercepted the protagonist Xiao Yifeng by removing Qin Yunhan's suitor. 100 villain points awarded. The reward was small, but it made sense. Zhen Wei was a minor character, a mere footnote in the grander plot. By the afternoon, Wang Haoran was back in his seat, his Bluetooth headset active as he monitored the audio feed from Qin Yunhan's phone. Sum Wean approached his desk. She held a test paper against her chest, her eyes fixed on him with an intensity that bordered on a trance. I have a problem I can't solve, she said, laying the paper down and pointing to a calculus equation. Can you teach me? Wang Haoran glanced at the problem. It was basic. For a student of Sun Wuyan's caliber, it was child's play. The tables had turned. Previously, he had used study sessions as an excuse to get close to her. Now, the school flower was using his own tricks against him. "This one is simple," he said, playing along. "I'll show you." Sun Wuyan sat in the empty seat beside him, leaning her head so close that her hair brushed his shoulder. She watched his pen move with rapt attention, but through the headset, the chatter between the two heiresses caught his attention. "Sister Yunhan, should we go back to the villa for our clothes?" "No. Who knows if that hillbilly is still lurking there? I don't want to see his face. But we need a change of clothes. Should we ask Uncle Li to bring them?" "Are you crazy, Zhao Zhao? He's an older man, but he's still a man. You want him sorting through our lingerie?" Right. So what are we going to wear?" "There's a shopping district nearby. We'll go out at lunch and just buy new ones." "You're paying." "I'm broke, stingy." "You're not poor, just cheap." Fine. I'll pay. Let's go." Silence fell over the headset as the girls began to move. "Why aren't you saying anything?" Sun Wuyan asked, her voice snapping him back to the classroom. "I just remembered I have an urgent matter," Wang Haoran said, standing up abruptly. "I'll have to finish this later." He vanished from the room before she could respond, leaving Sun Wuyan staring at the half-finished equation, with a look of deep hurt. Wang Haoran walked out of the school gates and ducked into a small restaurant across the street. He ordered a few dishes as a cover and sat by the window, watching the entrance. 5 minutes later, Qin Yunhan and Mu Zhaozhao exited the campus. They hailed a taxi and pulled away. Wang Haoran stood up to follow, but he stopped when he saw 2 other vehicles pull out from the curb. A battered van and a white La Vida followed the taxi like predators trailing a scent. Subconsciously, Wang Haoran activated his perspective vision. His gaze pierced through the metal and glass of the trailing cars. He only had 5 seconds before they disappeared around a corner, but it was all he needed. He saw the thugs in the van, and more importantly, he saw exactly who was behind the wheel of the La Vida. The game was no longer just about points. It was about timing. Chapter 60. Will you touch porcelain? The 3 youths in the van looked like a collection of bad omens. Knives and coils of rope lay scattered across the floorboards. The purpose of the blades was self-evident, but the rope served a much darker intent: kidnapping. These were not mere street thugs. They were professionals waiting for a strike. A short distance behind them, the white La Vida carried its own mystery. The driver was a bloated, nondescript man, but the passenger in the back seat drew all of Wang Haoran's attention. Despite the summer heat, the young men wore tattered, rustic clothes that had been washed into a faded gray. He looked like a migrant worker fresh from a construction site. The 2 cars were clearly not traveling together, yet they shared the same target. Wang Haoran watched the rustic youth with a cold intensity. He was certain this was Xiao Yifeng. Zhen Wei's earlier description had been vivid enough, and the appearance of this mountain master matched perfectly. It was almost laughable. Qin Kai had surely provided his new bodyguard with decent clothing, yet Xiao Yifeng chose to remain in rags. It was the classic vanity of a protagonist, the desire to be underestimated, so that the eventual face-slapping would feel all the more satisfying. Both vehicles trailed the taxi carrying Qin Yunhan and Mu Zhaozhao toward the city's heart. Wang Haoran stepped to the curb and raised his hand. A taxi and a motorcycle taxi pulled up simultaneously. He calculated the odds. A taxi offered speed, but only on an open road. Ahead, the route to the commercial district was a labyrinth of traffic and red lights. He hopped onto the back of the motorcycle. Straight ahead, Wang Haoran directed, his voice muffled by the wind. "I'll give you the turns as we go." "You got it," the driver grunted. The motorcycle roared to life. Wang Haoran pulled up his phone, tracking Qin Yunhan's movements through the hidden GPS virus. As they left the school zone, the traffic congealed into a slow, metallic crawl. The taxi's speed plummeted, but the motorcycle darted through the gaps between bumpers like a needle through silk. Soon, the yellow roof of Qin Yunhan's taxi appeared in the distance. The van and the La Vida hovered behind it like sharks. Wang Haoran adjusted his helmet, confident his face was hidden. He focused his gaze, activating his perspective vision to lock onto Xiao Yifeng. "System," he commanded, "consume 100 villain points. I need a full attribute panel." Data flooded his mind instantly. Protagonist Xiao Yifeng. Combat Strength 983. Charm 128. Protagonist Halo 726. Skills Grandmaster level medical skills, 15 years of internal power, advanced hidden weapon skills. Wang Haoran nearly swore aloud. The numbers were staggering. A 20-year-old with master level medicine was one thing, but 15 years of internal power. The boy must have started cultivating in the womb. His own master-level Wing Chun felt like a toy compared to the raw power of a true internal martial artist. He checked the system shop. 3 years of internal power cost 1,500 points. To match Xiao Yifeng, he would need to drop 7,500 points just to reach parity. It was an astronomical sum. A direct physical confrontation was out of the question for now. He would have to win this with his brain, not his fists. "Driver, take the back alleys to the commercial street," Wang Haoran urged. "We need to get ahead of them." "I know the shortcuts," the driver replied, leaning the bike hard into a narrow alleyway. They twisted through a maze of damp corridors and narrow passages. 15 minutes later, they emerged at the mouth of the bustling commercial district. According to the GPS, Qin Yunhan was still 10 minutes away. The layout was perfect for an ambush. Dozens of forks and narrow exits provided a dozen escape routes for a kidnapper, but they also provided an opportunity for a different kind of interference. Wang Haoran looked at the map, then at the license plate of the white La Vida he had photographed earlier. A plan solidified. "That's 8 yuan, the driver said as Wang Haoran hopped off. "How much do you make on a good day, master?" Wang Haoran asked. 200 if I'm lucky. 100 if it's slow. How would you like to make 300,000 today?" The driver blinked, scratching his head beneath his helmet. 300,000? How? Are you asking me to touch porcelain? Inside the white La Vida, Xiao Yifeng's pulse quickened with anticipation. He watched the van ahead, waiting for the kidnappers to make their move. This was his stage. He would save the girl, secure his job, and move back into the villa. He could already see the look of gratitude in Qin Yunhan's eyes. The driver was an expert, weaving through traffic with slippery ease. Xiao Yifeng didn't have to worry about losing them. He just had to wait for the scream. Suddenly, boom. The car jolted forward with a sickening crunch of metal on plastic. "What happened?" Xiao Yifeng barked, his daydream shattered. "Some idiot on a bike." The fat driver yelled, slamming on the brakes. "He turned right into us. Didn't even look." "Ignore it. Keep moving," Xiao Yifeng urged, his eyes glued to the disappearing van. "It's a hit and run if I leave," the driver said, his face pale, as he looked into the rearview mirror. "I don't care. Chase that van," Xiao Yifeng snarled. He didn't give a damn about the driver's license or the law. If he lost this trail now, his perfect rescue would vanish into thin air. Chapter 61. The Double Capture. "We can't move," the driver reported, his voice tight, as he checked the side mirror. "There's a solid row of cars behind us, and that motorcycle driver is wedged right under our front wheels. If I even touch the gas, I'll crush him. Damn it." Xiao Yifeng shoved his door open and marched to the front of the sedan. The motorcycle master lay sprawled across the asphalt, his body twisted in a convincing display of agony. Xiao Yifeng scanned the man's frame with a practiced medical eye. No visible scars, no pooling blood, perhaps a few internal bruises at worst. He had to get to the girl. He had to be the hero. Reaching down, he intended to haul the man out of the way so he could apply a quick, forceful treatment and clear the road. The moment his fingers brushed the man's jacket, the driver let out a blood-curdling shriek. "Murder! He's trying to kill me! Help!" The cry acted like a magnet. Pedestrians stopped in their tracks, circling the scene within seconds. They pointed and whispered, several pulling out their phones to record the confrontation. Xiao Yifeng froze, his hand hovering in midair. To force the man away now, under the gaze of a dozen cameras, would be social suicide. He looked over the roofs of the surrounding cars, searching for the van. He calculated his chances of chasing it on foot with his extraordinary speed, but the white vehicle had already vanished into the sea of traffic. Fury surged through him, hot and helpless. Inside a taxi several blocks away, the atmosphere was thick with impatience. "How much longer, driver?" Mu Zhaozhao checked her watch, her voice rising in pitch. "We really can't be late getting back." "Almost there. Another 4 or 5 minutes. Take us all the way into the commercial street," Qin Yunhan commanded. She had no intention of walking a step further than necessary. "Look, beauties, the commercial street is packed," the driver countered. "The cars move like ants in there. If you're in a hurry, I'll drop you at the intersection. You'll be much faster on foot." Wang Haoran sat in a nearby clothing store, listening to the exchange through his Bluetooth headset. He moved with clinical efficiency, grabbing a few sets of clothes and paying within 2 minutes. He sprinted toward the intersection, his perspective vision activating. His sight telescoped, piercing through the crowds and the metal frames of passing cars, until he locked onto the yellow roof of their taxi. The cab slowed to a halt at the curb. Wang Haoran timed his stride, adjusting his shopping bags so he appeared to be a casual shopper wandering by. As Qin Yunhan leaned over to scan the payment QR code and stepped out of the car, she nearly collided with him. "Hey, what a coincidence," she said, her eyes brightening. "What are you doing here?" Wang Haoran practiced his surprised face, letting a look of sudden recognition wash over him. "Oh hey, just finished some shopping." He gestured to his bags, then tilted his head toward the street. "Since you're here for clothes too, why don't I walk with you? We can head back to school together when you're finished." "Sure, I don't see." "Actually, Wang Haoran, we're shopping for women's things today." Mu Zhaozhao stepped between them, her smile sweet and apologetic. "It might be a little awkward having a guy tagging along." "I'm sorry." Wang Haoran hadn't spent much time with Mu Zhaozhao before. Her tone was gentle, her demeanor that of a soft, lovely girl. On the surface, she seemed harmless. Curious, he spent 100 villain points to pull her data. Heroine Mu Zhaozhao. Combat Strength 20. Charm 196. Heroine Halo 489. Skill None. Favorability -20. Disgusted. Wang Haoran looked back at her, his eyes narrowed slightly. Her stats were impressive, but the favorability rating was a shock. He watched as her sweet smile grew even wider under his gaze. A black-bellied loli, he realized. She's playing a part. The discrepancy bothered him. They had never interacted, yet she held a deep-seated hatred for him. Was it a natural instinct of the heroine to loathe the villain? Or was there something deeper? "I'll go with Zhaozhao for now," Qin Yunhan said, waving him off. "I'll text you later." "Wait a second," Wang Haoran interrupted, stalling for time. "You're staying in the dorms now. You're going to need daily necessities, sheets, pillows, things like that. Do you want me to pick those up for you?" "Actually, yes. That would be a huge help." "Then tell me what you like. Colors, styles. I want to make sure I get the right ones." A short distance away, the van sat idling at the curb. "There's a guy with them," the short youth whispered, leaning over the dashboard. "Do we stick to the plan?" "He looks like a student," Mesa spat, reaching for his blade. "If he gets in the way, I'll give him a few inches of steel." "Don't touch him," the tall leader hissed. "What's wrong, Gao? Getting cold feet? Use your eyes, idiot. Look at his face. Doesn't he look familiar?" Maisie and the short youth squinted through the windshield, studying Wang Haoran's profile. Recognition hit them like a physical blow. Is that the heir to the Wang group? Talk about a payday. If we snag him too, we're set for life. The tall youth's heart hammered against his ribs. These men spent their lives studying the faces of the city's elite. "Maisie, you and I take the guy. Shorty, you grab the girls. We're going to be legends after today." They pulled on their hoods, the fabric obscuring their features. The tall youth floored the accelerator, and the van lurched forward, screeching to a halt inches from the trio. The side door slid open with a violent metallic bang. 3 masked figures blurred out of the vehicle. Qin Yunhan and Mu Zhaozhao turned ashen, their breath hitching in their throats. Wang Haoran didn't flinch. He had been watching them through the van's walls for minutes. As the tall youth and Mesa lunged at him, he stepped into their reach. He drove a short, explosive inch punch into Mesa's solar plexus and followed it with a brutal, low kick to the leader's groin. Both moves landed with the full weight of his master-level Wing Chun. The thugs collapsed instantly, their lungs seizing and their bodies curling into fetal positions. The short youth, who had been reaching for the girls, recoiled in shock at the sight of his partners hitting the pavement. Wang Haoran didn't give him time to think. He lunged forward, leading with his elbow. The strike caught the youth in the chest, sent him flying several meters back into the street. Ding! The host has intercepted the protagonist Xiao Yifeng, defeated the kidnappers, and saved Qin Yunhan. 200 villain points awarded. The 3 thugs scrambled to their feet, their bravado replaced by pure terror. They hadn't expected a student to be a killing machine. Groaning and clutching their injuries, they piled back into the van and tore away, tires smoking against the pavement. Wang Haoran watched the van disappear into the distance. He could have stopped them permanently, but he let them go. If he turned them over to the police, Qin Kai would be alerted. An investigation would reveal that his daughter was the target, and the old man would undoubtedly double down on his security, forcing Xiao Yifeng back into her life. He preferred to keep the danger a secret. As for Qin Yunhan, her heroine halo would keep her safe enough. She was a magnet for trouble, but she had an even stronger knack for surviving it. Chapter 62. The Golden Finger. The van sped away, leaving a lingering scent of burnt rubber in the air. Qin Yunhan and Mu Zhaozhao stood frozen, their faces pale and eyes wide, caught in the paralyzing aftermath of the adrenaline spike. "They must have been coming for me." "You two don't have to worry," Wang Haoran said, his voice dropping into a comforting, steady register. He pulled out his phone and made a show of dialing his father, Wang Xiang. He recounted the incident with clinical detail, asking for the family security team to handle the fallout. Once he tucked the phone away, the girls finally began to breathe again. Qin Yunhan looked at him with newfound wonder. Wow, I thought you were just a top student, but I didn't expect you to be such a fighter. Why didn't you chase them, though? It's a pity they got away. I'm only one person, Wang Haoran replied, his gaze softening. If I chased them and they grew desperate, they might have circled back to attack you. It wouldn't matter if I got hurt, but if anything happened to either of you, I would feel guilty for the rest of my life. Qin Yunhan stunned. She stared at him as if seeing a completely different person. Beside her, Mu Zhaozhao remained silent, but her eyes scanned Wang Haoran with a sharp, recalculating intensity. Ding. Heroine Qin Yunhan's favorability has increased by 10, total favorability 30, very friendly. Ding. Heroine Mu Zhaozhao's favorability has increased by 20, total favorability 0, stranger. Ding. The host has influenced the plot direction. 300 villain points awarded. Wang Haoran suppressed a smirk. Actor-level performances truly were top tier. A few lines of selfless nonsense had flipped their perspectives entirely. After a brief chat to narrow down their tastes, Wang Haoran parted ways with the girls. They headed into the high-end boutiques of the commercial district, while he made his way toward Home City. Walking through the massive home decor warehouse, he began selecting supplies: sheets, pillows, and blankets. He steered toward a girlish aesthetic, picking out soft pinks and plush fabrics. However, the sheer variety of similar styles soon became overwhelming. He stood in the center of an aisle, frowning at two nearly identical sets of linens. "Young Master Wang?" A woman's voice, melodic and surprised, drifted from nearby. He turned to find a beautiful woman in sharp professional attire. Her long legs, framed by dark hosiery, gave her an air of sophisticated elegance. It was Fang Suan, the secretary for his mother, Zhen Li. She carried a shopping bag from a brand known for women's undergarments. Wang Haoran's brow quirked. The brand was notably low-end. The items inside likely cost less than 50 yuan. It was a strange choice for a woman with a high-ranking secretary's salary. Cheap, poorly made garments like those were a disservice to someone with her physical capital. "Secretary Fang, shouldn't you be at the office?" Wang Haoran asked, keeping his curiosity about her shopping habits to himself. "I took some leave to help my brother buy a few things," Fang Suan explained with a warm smile. "Your brother?" Wang Haoran glanced around the empty aisle. He stepped away to the restroom. "In that case, are you free for a moment?" Wang Haoran asked. "I'm picking out household items like sheets and pillows for some female friends. I want something they'll actually like, and your eye for these things is surely better than mine." "Consider it done," Fang Suan agreed. As the boss's son, Wang Haoran commanded a natural friendliness from her. She moved through the displays with practiced ease. Within 5 minutes, she had curated a selection of high-quality, beautiful items. Wang Haoran nodded, satisfied that the choices would please both Qin Yunhan and Mu Zhaozhao. "Sister," a young man, not quite 20, walked up and called out to Fang Suan. "You're back," Fang Suan said. She gestured toward the newcomer. "This is my brother, Fang Heng." Wang Haoran offered a polite nod. Unlike his sister's striking beauty, Fang Heng was remarkably ordinary. Had they not been standing together, he never would have guessed they were related. "You look about my age. Are you still in school?" Wang Haoran asked casually. "He graduated high school last year," Fang Suan answered for him. "His grades weren't quite enough for college." "I see," Wang Haoran replied. Fang Heng's expression soured. He shot Wang Haoran a look of pure resentment. High self-esteem and a lack of academic success made for a volatile mix, and he clearly didn't appreciate his failures being discussed in front of a stranger. "Sister, who is this guy? Why are you even talking to him?" Fang Heng's tone was sharp and dismissive. "Xiao Heng, be polite," Fang Suan hissed, her face pale with worry. "This is my boss's son." "Oh, so he's just another rich second-generation brat," Fang Heng muttered, his voice thick with sarcasm. "Xiao Heng, apologize right now." "Why? Being rich doesn't make him special. I don't owe him anything." Fang Suan looked like she was on the verge of a panic attack. She knew how much Zhen Li adored her son. One bad word from Wang Haoran could end her career. "You're being incredibly naive," Fang Suan snapped. "Listen to me for once. Sister, you're just afraid of wearing small shoes at work," Fang Heng said with a bored sigh. "It's unnecessary. From now on, I'll be the one taking care of you." Fang Suan's hand twitched as if she wanted to slap him, but she restrained herself. She turned to Wang Haoran with a pleading look. "Master Wang, please forgive him. He's young and ignorant. Don't take his words to heart. Wang Haoran didn't respond immediately. He wasn't offended, he was intrigued. Fang Heng was a college dropout, with no clear path forward, yet he spoke with the unearned confidence of a king. Does he think he's a protagonist? The thought made Wang Haoran smile internally. He decided to verify. He spent 100 villain points for a scan. Protagonist Fang Heng. Combat Strength 76. Charm 86. Protagonist Halo 387. Skill Golden Finger. Treasure Appraisal. Effect Touching an item reveals its history, material, and value. He really was a protagonist. Wang Haoran looked at the boy again. A halo of 387 was weak compared to someone like Xiao Yifeng. This was a wealth-building protagonist, someone meant to stumble upon relics and build an empire from dust. With a halo of 456, Wang Haoran knew he could crush this boy effortlessly. But he didn't want to. A low-threat protagonist wasn't an enemy to be feared, he was a walking reward chest. He was an experience book waiting to be read. Chapter 63. Planning. Wang Haoran pulled his gaze back, though his mind continued to race. He cast an inadvertent look at Fang Suan. Since Fang Heng carried the unmistakable mark of a protagonist, did that make his beautiful sister a heroine? They were siblings, which usually complicated such things, but he found himself wondering if some twisted author was behind the scenes pulling the strings. He considered the possibilities for a moment before settling on a likely theory. Secretary Fang, your younger brother is just a spirited young man, Wang Haoran said, his voice smooth and gentle. I understand his temper. I'm not angry, so there is no need for further apologies. Fang Suan exhaled, a visible wave of relief washing over her. Fang Heng, however, didn't appreciate the gesture. He offered no gratitude, instead narrowing his eyes at Wang Haoran with lingering resentment. You two don't look much like siblings, do you? Wang Haoran asked abruptly. I'm an adopted daughter, Fang Suan explained, making no effort to hide the truth. Xiao Heng and I share no blood relation, but we have always been as close as real siblings. That confirmed it. Wang Haoran didn't even need to spend the 100 villain points to verify. Fang Suan was officially labeled a heroine in his mind. Fang Heng, clearly uncomfortable watching his sister chat so easily with Wang Haoran, gestured toward a row of shared massage chairs across the aisle. I'm going over there to sit for a while. Fang Suan nodded, waiting until her brother was out of earshot before turning back. He just has that kind of temper, Master Wang. Please, don't take it to heart. As I said, it truly doesn't matter. Wang Haoran's calm expression seemed to settle her nerves completely. She gestured to the items in his cart. Is there anything else you need to choose? That's everything. You're buying these for girls, aren't you? Fang Suan asked. Seeing Wang Haoran's approachable demeanor, she allowed herself a small, playful smile. Just a female classmate. I suspect it might be a little more complicated than that. I don't have much interest in little girls, Wang Haoran replied, his tone shifting. He allowed his gaze to linger on her for a beat too long. In comparison, workplace beauties like you, Secretary Fang, are far more attractive to me. Fang Suan's smile faltered, replaced by a flash of genuine embarrassment. She had viewed him as a mere boy, a student, but that sudden remark left her stunned. She didn't get angry, however. She simply forced a light laugh to break the tension. Master Wang, stop joking with me. What if I told you I wasn't joking? Wang Haoran's face turned dead serious. Fang Suan froze. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. She was entirely unsure how to respond to such a direct provocation from the boss's son. Wang Haoran didn't give her the chance to find her voice. Since the items are selected, I have other business to attend to. I'll be going first. He offered a meaningful, lingering smile and turned away before she could utter a word. Fang Suan stood rooted to the spot, a strange, fluttering sensation in her chest. She remained there in a daze until Fang Heng eventually returned to call her. Sister, what's wrong with your face? Are you feeling sick? A little, Fang Suan lied, finding an easy excuse. I think I'm just exhausted from work lately. She said nothing about Wang Haoran's parting words. Once he was clear of the shopping center, Wang Haoran contacted his mother, Zhenli. He requested the basic personnel files from Fang Suan's employment records, specifically her home address. With the address secured, he placed a second call to the private detective agency he had used to investigate Chu Bai. He needed the full picture of the Fang family's current situation, and more importantly, he wanted a shadow on Fang Heng's every move. On the other side of the city, Xiao Yifeng and the fat driver finally disentangled themselves from the aftermath of the accident. As soon as the police were satisfied, Xiao Yifeng called Qin Kai, carefully fishing for information about Qin Yunhan. Qin Kai sounded perfectly normal. The conversation was brief and ended without any mention of trouble. Xiao Yifeng hung up, his mind churning. If Qin Kai was calm, it meant no ransom calls had been made. Qin Yunhan was safe. But why? Why had the thugs in the van failed to act? He couldn't wrap his head around it. Still, the outcome worked in his favor. Since she hadn't been kidnapped, no one could blame him for failing to protect her. Your lady is safe for now, Xiao Yifeng warned the driver. Don't mention a word of what happened today to anyone. If President Qin finds out you crashed the car and lost sight of his daughter, you'll be out of a job. Act like nothing happened. The fat driver nodded vigorously. He had been Qin Kai's driver for years without a single scratch on a vehicle. He had no desire to ruin his reputation over a day that ended with no harm done. After Qin Yunhan and Mu Zhaozhao finished their shopping, they met Wang Haoran at the designated pickup point. A black Rolls-Royce Cullinan was already idling at the curb. Wang Haoran had avoided using the conspicuous car earlier to maintain his accidental encounter, but now that they were heading back to school, there was no need for such modesty. The three of them returned to campus in luxury. Before heading to class, Wang Haoran stopped at a shop outside the gates to buy 2 cups of Mandarin duck milk tea. The afternoon bell was about to ring. Students were already settled at their desks. Sumwen sat in her usual spot, catching sight of Wang Haoran out of the corner of her eye. She pointedly ignored him. She was still nursing a bit of resentment, a sour dash of vinegar over how quickly he had abandoned her earlier that morning. Suddenly, a warm palm slid a cup of milk tea onto her desk, right under her nose. She looked up to find Wang Haoran smiling down at her. I bought this specifically for you, he whispered. Without waiting for a reply, he strolled back to his own seat. Sumwen's icy resolve melted instantly. Her bad mood vanished, replaced by a surge of warmth. He must have really been in a rush earlier, she thought, but he was still thinking of me. She gripped the cup, feeling the heat of the tea against her skin. She hadn't even taken a sip, yet her heart felt impossibly sweet. Ding. The host has successfully teased the heart of the heroine Sumwen. 100 villain points awarded. Later that evening, the detective agency's report arrived. It detailed the specifics of Fang Suan's family life, and Wang Haoran finally understood why a woman with a high salary dressed so poorly. She was funneling every cent into her family's bottomless needs. The report also confirmed his suspicions about Fang Heng. The boy's golden finger was a fresh acquisition. He hadn't yet used his treasure-appraising eyes to build a fortune. Wang Haoran thought back to his serious declaration to Fang Suan. If she were just a regular woman, he wouldn't have bothered, but as a heroine, she was a target of opportunity. Building favorability through standard means would take too long. He needed something more direct. He picked up his phone and called his mother again. Mom, he said, I think we should give Secretary Fang a raise. Let's add 100,000 to her monthly salary. Chapter 64. The High Price of Principles. The Gaoxi Tianxiang headquarters building loomed against the darkening sky. Fang Suan stepped into the lobby, her heart heavy with a persistent, cold melancholy. The trip to the hospital after leaving home city had been a nightmare. Her mother's condition had spiraled. The doctors were blunt, she needed immediate dialysis again. But the cycles of treatment had already drained Fang Suan's savings to the dregs. There was nothing left. She had squeezed every relative for every cent, and the mountain of debt already reached hundreds of thousands of dollars. The weight of it made every breath feel like a struggle against a physical force. She slumped into the elevator, riding it up to the executive floor. She forced her features into a mask of professional composure, determined to bury her grief in paperwork. Fang Suan. Zhenli didn't look up from her desk immediately, but her voice carried clearly across the quiet office. Starting this month, your salary will increase by 100,000 per month. Fang Suan froze. The air in the room seemed to vanish. Mr. Zhen? Why? What is the reason for this? She had always been a woman of rigid principles. No matter how dire her finances, she never brought her personal tragedies to the office. She refused to be a charity case for her colleagues or her boss. There was no way Zhenli could have known about the hospital bills. This was Haoran's suggestion, Zhenli replied. The older woman finally looked up, her expression unreadable. She could guess her son's motivations well enough, and as a mother, she was more than happy to facilitate his whims. Fang Suan was beautiful, capable, and had a remarkably clean social circle. In Zhenli's eyes, the girl was a suitable enough interest for her son. Zhenli returned her focus to the documents on her desk, leaving the silence to stretch. Fang Suan's mind became a chaotic storm of joy, entanglement, and a simmering, helpless anger. She realized now that Wang Haoran's joke at the store had been a calculated opening move. She wanted to scream. She wanted to refuse. But the cold reality of her life held her tongue. The salary was a lifeline. If she rejected Zhen Li's offer, the news would fly straight back to Wang Haoran. If he took offense, he could have her fired with a single word. What would happen to her mother then? How would her father, confined to a wheelchair since his workplace injury, survive without her income? Even with 1,000 screams of no locked in her throat, she didn't dare let a single one escape. Suddenly, her phone vibrated. An unfamiliar number flashed on the screen. Are you satisfied? Wang Haoran's voice was smooth, devoid of the youthful innocence he wore at school. Why? Fang Suan whispered, her fingers trembling against the plastic casing. Why are you doing this? You're a smart woman, Secretary Fang. You already know why. What do I need to pay? The phone isn't the place for that conversation, he said, his tone shifting into something more authoritative. I'll be at the Dehao Hotel tonight. Room number will be sent shortly. Be there at 10 o'clock so we can talk face to face. The line went dead. The busy tone echoed in her ear, a rhythmic mocking sound. She didn't have the courage to say no. She took a ragged breath, smoothed her skirt, and threw herself back into her work, trying to drown her fear in spreadsheets. Time slipped away. By 9:30, the office was a tomb of shadows. Because of her half-day leave, the workload was still immense, but a notification chimed on her phone. The room number had arrived. Mr. Zhen? Fang Suan cleared her throat, looking toward the inner office. I need to leave early. Is that all right? Of course, Zhenli called back. Go ahead. While Fang Suan navigated her quiet desperation, her brother was fueled by a very different kind of energy. Fang Heng wasn't worried about the family's debt. He knew he could fix it. He knew he was destined for greatness. He stood at the entrance of Furukawa Street, the most famous antique market in Qingling City. The air was thick with the smell of old wood, dust, and the desperation of tourists. Most of the items on the stalls were IQ taxes, cheap fakes meant to swindle the uninformed. Even at nearly 10 at night, the street buzzed with life. Experts and hobbyists alike prowled the stalls, looking for Dobeo, the legendary find that would turn a few dollars into a fortune. Most left with empty pockets. Only those with true skill or godlike luck ever succeeded. Fang Heng smiled. He had something better than luck. His golden finger allowed him to see the truth. With a single touch, he could peel back the layers of grime and deception to find the pearls hidden in the dust. He moved into the crowd, his eyes gleaming with ambition. Across town, Wang Haoran stepped out of the shower in a palatial presidential suite at the Dehao Hotel. He dried his hair, checking a message from his private detective. Fang Heng has arrived at Guhi Street. Wang Haoran leaned back against the headboard, his eyes narrowing. He knew exactly what the boy was doing. If Fang Heng found a treasure, he'd have the money to pay for his mother's medical bills. That would eliminate Fang Suan's weakness. If the weakness vanished, so did Wang Haoran's leverage. Once Fang Heng had wealth, he'd likely convince his sister to quit her job. If she left the company, the connection would be severed, and the opportunity to harvest villain points from her would evaporate. Xiao Yifeng was already a mountain of a problem. To survive the coming conflict, Wang Haoran needed every scrap of power he could get. He couldn't afford to let this experience book slip through his fingers. He had to shear the wool from Fang Heng before the boy could grow his flock. His phone chimed. It was Sun Weian, texting from home. What are you doing? Are you home yet? He smiled, tapping out a series of harmless, playful lies. He kept the conversation going, enjoying the way she clung to every word. Her interest was piquing, her messages coming nearly as fast as Wen Jing's. A sharp knock at the door broke his concentration. The door is open. Come in. The silence that followed lasted for a dozen long seconds. Finally, the heavy door creaked open. Fang Suan stepped into the suite. She was still in her professional attire, but the poise was gone. Her brow was furrowed, her skin a shade too pale. Even from across the room, the tension radiating from her body was palpable. She looked like a prisoner walking toward a gallows. Chapter 65. The supervillain attacks. Wang Haoran typed a quick reply to Sun Weian, telling her he was going to take a bath. He set the phone aside and turned his attention back to Fang Suan. Just sit down and relax, he said. He poured a glass of red wine and took a slow, deliberate sip. He tilted the bottle toward her. Drink. Fang Suan shook her head. She didn't speak a single word, but her silence radiated a crushing level of anxiety. Wang Haoran was in no hurry. He didn't press her. Instead, he walked over to the suite's karaoke machine and selected a few soothing, melodic tracks. He began to sing to himself, letting his voice fill the quiet luxury of the room. After a few songs, he set the microphone down and looked back. Fang Suan's face had regained some color. She was looking at him with a glimmer of genuine surprise, clearly caught off guard by the quality of his voice. Ding. Heroine Fang Suan's favorability has increased by 10. Total favorability -10. Mild disgust. Ding. The host has influenced the plot direction. 100 villain points awarded. Negative favorability. Wang Haoran felt a momentary sting of surprise, but he quickly dismissed it. It made sense. Any well-behaved professional woman would naturally feel a sense of loathing when backed into a corner like this. He didn't mind. He wasn't after her heart, he was after the results. I understand your family situation, Wang Haoran said, breaking the silence. You are an adopted daughter, yet you have paid nearly $1 million in medical expenses for your adoptive mother over the years. Is it worth it? To me, they are no different from biological parents, she answered firmly. A truly filial woman. Wang Haoran nodded in approval. But uremia is a bottomless pit. You need money, a massive amount of it, and it has become a weight you can no longer carry alone. I can provide that money. 10 million. Fang Suan gasped. The number hung in the air, far exceeding the $100,000 raise she had expected to be his price. Ding. Heroine Fang Suan's favorability has increased by 10. Total favorability 0. Stranger. Ding. The host has influenced the plot direction. 100 villain points awarded. Wang Haoran paused, watching the gears turn behind her eyes. So, you understand what I expect in return? Fang Suan pursed her lips tightly, her gaze dropping to the floor. Finally, she gave a single, slow nod. She had known what this was when she walked through the door. There is a new bathrobe in the shower room, Wang Haoran said, gesturing toward the door. Fang Suan nodded again. Her pace was heavy, every step appearing to cost her a great deal of effort as she disappeared into the bathroom. While she was gone, Wang Haoran picked up her phone from the table. Within seconds, he had transmitted a surveillance virus into the device. From this moment on, her movements and conversations would be as transparent to him as Qin Yunhan's. Half an hour later, the bathroom door creaked open. I was starting to think you were never coming out, Wang Haoran teased. She stood frozen by the door, clutching the robe closed. He frowned slightly. You are 25 years old, Fang Suan. Do you really need me to teach you what comes next? She walked toward him with agonizing slowness. As it turned out, she did need to be taught. Ding. The host has successfully captured the heroine Fang Suan. 1,000 villain points awarded. Fang Suan's heroine halo, -50. Fang Hung's protagonist halo, -50. Host's villain halo, +100. Ding. Heroine Fang Suan's favorability has increased by 20. Total favorability 20. Friendly. The influx of points was exactly what Wang Haoran had anticipated, but the shift in the auras caught him by surprise. He cursed the system internally. Why hadn't the protocol been clearer from the start? He had assumed capturing a heroine only drained the protagonist, but it seemed he could absorb her aura for himself. In these stories, a protagonist was usually surrounded by a harem of women. That meant there were far more heroine auras to harvest than protagonist auras. He had set out to be the protagonist's nemesis, but he realized now he could be something more, a reaper of heroines. If his villain halo eclipsed the protagonist's, he wouldn't just be a rival, he would be an unstoppable force. He pushed the thought aside and looked at the favorability jump. 20 points? He glanced at Fang Suan. The sharp, cold terror in her eyes had softened into something much gentler. He wondered if his high physical stats had played a role in the sudden shift. You've really never had a boyfriend before? He asked. It seemed almost impossible for a 25-year-old woman to be a beginner, even if she did fit the pure heroine archetype of a novel. My parents didn't have much money, Fang Suan said, her voice quiet. I worked incredibly hard just to finish university. After graduation, I focused entirely on my career at Gaoxi Tianxiang. Once I became President Zhen's secretary, the income was good, but then the news about my mother's illness came. I never had the time or the heart to think about romance. I see. Wang Haoran nodded. His phone buzzed. A message from his detectives. Fang Hung found an ancient porcelain bowl on Furukawa Street. Sold it on the spot for 5 million. He is currently heading home. Wang Haoran felt a surge of triumph. Fang Hung was too slow. Even if the boy became a millionaire tonight, he couldn't change the fact that his sister had already been claimed. I imagine you'd prefer to avoid any office gossip about this, Wang Haoran said suddenly. I don't think anyone would enjoy that, she agreed, looking at him with confusion. Why do you ask? I'm going to divide the 10 million into several smaller payments over time. It will look like bonuses or standard transfers. That way, there won't be any suspicious rumors. Fang Suan nodded. She didn't press for details. In her eyes, a young man who threw around millions like pocket change wasn't likely to cheat her. Can we rest now? She asked, her voice laced with exhaustion. I prefer to sleep alone, Wang Haoran said, his tone turning cold and blunt. You can go back now. Fang Suan went still. The sudden dismissal felt like a slap. You want me to go back? Now? She remained silent for a long moment, the sting of the rejection clear on her face. Okay, she finally whispered. She didn't dare cross him. Wang Haoran watched her leave, a sharp smile touching his lips. He wasn't being ruthless for the sake of it. He knew Fang Hung was on his way home with a $5 million secret. He wanted Fang Suan to be there when the protagonist tried to share his joy. That confrontation would be far more interesting than a night of sleep. In the small villa across town, Qin Kai and Xiao Yifeng sat on the sofa while Uncle Li served tea. You spent the whole day at the school, Qin Kai said, offering a warm smile. It must have been exhausting. Drink some tea. It was nothing, Xiao Yifeng said, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He felt a deep, gnawing frustration. Did you notice anything suspicious? Qin Kai asked. Anyone following Yunhan? Nothing at all, Xiao Yifeng lied smoothly. If anyone was there, I would have caught them. That's a relief. Qin Kai took a slow sip of his tea, nodding in satisfaction. Uncle Qin, what about my enrollment? Xiao Yifeng asked, his eyes brightening with expectation. Since seeing Qin Yunhan the day before, he had been desperate to be near her. Qin Kai's relaxed posture vanished, replaced by a look of deep embarrassment. Chapter 66. Will I be able to appraise treasures after reading antique books for a few days? It will take a few days to arrange your enrollment, Qin Kai said, his voice carrying a practiced calm. Xiao Yifeng didn't hide his disappointment. He leaned forward, his eyes searching Qin Kai's face. I still have to wait. With your financial resources and connections, Uncle Qin, is it really that difficult to apply for admission? Of course it isn't difficult, but procedures take time. We have to wait for the paperwork to clear. Qin Kai leaned back, banking on the fact that Xiao Yifeng didn't understand the inner workings of the school system. He was bluffing. He had spent the afternoon at Tang Bingyun's office, only to be turned away again. He still couldn't fathom where he had offended her. His calls were blocked, and even a personal visit resulted in a closed door. It made no sense. He was a titan of industry in Qingling City, and yet a woman in her 20s was treating him like an unwanted solicitor. He had given up on Tang Bingyun for now. He planned to bypass her and contact the rest of the Tang family. She might be the director of the Mizusawa Education Group, but she didn't own the Tang lineage. He refused to believe he couldn't handle a girl half his age. What about Qin Yunhan staying at the school? Xiao Yifeng asked, his voice stubborn. He was desperate to get under the same roof as the young mistress. Does Uncle Qin just intend to leave her there? Yunhan is my daughter. I know her far too well. She has never lived in a dormitory in her life. She won't last in that environment. She hasn't even come back to the villa for her daily necessities or clothes. After a few days of enduring those conditions, she'll come crawling back on her own. Qin Kai spoke with the confidence of a man who had spent years spoiling his daughter, already imagining her tearful complaints about the lack of luxury. Hatch. In a tastefully decorated teacher's suite, Qin Yunhan rubbed her nose as she stepped out of the shower. Sister Yunhan, this place is so much better than the dorms. Mu Zhaozhao leaned back against the large bed with a wide smile. The room was a massive upgrade from the cramped dormitory. While the floor plan was modest, it lacked nothing. A private shower room stood in the corner, and the suite featured its own washing machine and air conditioner. It's not bad, Qin Yunhan admitted. She dried her hair with a plush towel. If my dad doesn't send that hillbilly packing, I'll stay here until graduation. Not bad? Do you two girls have any idea how much I spent on that? Wang Haoran's voice crackled through the phone on the nightstand. He had paid a hefty sum to convince a female teacher to vacate this room on short notice. It was easily the most spacious and well-appointed room in the faculty wing. To a girl like Qin Yunhan, it was merely passable, but Wang Haoran considered it a sound investment. He had no intention of letting the girls return to the villa where Xiao Yifeng could work his charm. Keeping them on campus was the only way to maintain control. The teacher said there's a parent-teacher meeting tomorrow, Mu Zhaozhao said, her voice floating through the Bluetooth headset. The school manager is coming to give a speech in person. Everyone has to call their parents. What are you going to do? I'm just a relative to my dad, Qin Yunhan replied. Her voice dropped, turning brittle. I could call anyone but him, and I know he won't come anyway. He's never been to one since I was a child. I'm not even going to bother. I'll just stand outside the classroom for the day. It's no big deal. The bitterness in her tone was sharp, followed by a faint, muffled sob. Mu Xiaoxiao opened her mouth to offer comfort, but the words died in her throat. A soft, fleshy smack echoed through the line. Mu Xiaoxiao had clearly regretted the topic and slapped her own cheek in frustration. The room went silent. Wang Haoran listened to the quiet, his mind racing. Qin Yunhan usually wore her spoiled, selfish personality like a suit of armor, but beneath the princess complex lay a fragile, neglected heart. He realized then that if he wanted to truly capture her, he needed to strike at that vulnerability. Midnight arrived. Fang Suan returned to the dilapidated residential building she called home. Because of her grueling schedule, she employed a nurse to watch over her father during the day, but by this hour, he should have been asleep. She turned her key slowly, hoping to slip into her room without a sound. The lock on the front door clicked before she could reach for it. Fang Suan froze as the door swung open. Fang Heng stood in the threshold. Xiao Heng, why are you back so late? Were you at the internet cafe again? Fang Suan's face tightened with a sisterly reprimand. I wasn't at a cafe, sister. I went out to make money. Fang Heng's face was flushed, his eyes bright with adrenaline. You don't even have a trade, Fang Suan sighed. Where would you make money? Since graduation, Fang Heng had been aimless, spending his days immersed in video games. She had tried to nudge him toward learning a craft, but he had resisted every suggestion. Who says I don't have a trade? My skill earned me a whole number tonight. Fang Heng proudly held up 5 fingers. $5? Fang Suan asked with a tired smile. No. 50. Keep going. 500. 5 million. Fang Heng blurted out, unable to contain the secret any longer. 5 million gold coins in a card game, maybe. Fang Suan rolled her eyes, but something in his expression stopped her. She looked at him seriously. Did you really earn 5 million? Yes. Real money. Fang Heng pulled up his banking app and shoved the phone toward her. Fang Suan counted the zeros. It was real. $5 million sat in his account. For a heartbeat, she wondered if this was the payment Wang Haoran had promised. Was he funneling the money through her brother? How did you get this? She asked, her voice wary. I've been reading books on antiques lately. I've learned a lot. I went down to Furukawa Street to practice, and I found an ancient porcelain bowl. That 5 million is from the sale. Fang Heng lied smoothly. He knew the truth about his golden finger was too far-fetched for her to believe, so he had constructed a more grounded explanation. You read a few books and suddenly you're an appraiser? Fang Suan's skepticism was immediate. Those experts spend decades studying their craft. You're telling me you mastered it in a few days? Only a fool would believe that. It's true, sister. I didn't steal it and I didn't rob anyone. I earned it myself. I'll swear it if you don't believe me. Chapter 67. The Reaper's Harvest. No need to swear. I believe you, Fang Suan responded immediately. She did believe him. She believed the porcelain bowl had sold for 5 million, but she didn't believe for a second in Fang Heng's sudden mastery of appraisal. From his frantic explanation, she was certain the bowl was a fake. Whoever had handed over 5 million for a piece of junk was undoubtedly a plant sent by Wang Haoran. Her younger brother was genuinely foolish. He actually thought he had discovered a hidden treasure. However, this suited her intentions perfectly. He could claim the money came from his talent to solve the family's financial crisis, giving her a legitimate way to use the funds she had earned through her own compromise. No one would have grounds to gossip. She couldn't help but sigh. Although Wang Haoran was young, his tactical mind was terrifying. It's late. Rest early. Fang Suan turned to walk back to her room, but as she moved, a sharp burst of pain flared through her. Her knees buckled, and she nearly collapsed. She reached out, bracing her palm against the wall to steady herself. Sister, why can't you walk straight? Fang Heng's face split into a wide, oblivious grin. You must be so excited about the money that your legs turned to jelly, right? Yes, that's it, Fang Suan said, squeezing out a strained smile. I think you should quit tomorrow, Fang Heng suggested, his eyes bright with newfound confidence. That secretary job is exhausting. I'll take care of you from now on. He felt a deep affection for Fang Suan, a special bond he had kept buried in the back of his heart because of his former low self-esteem. But things were different now. He was a provider. He could support the entire family and give her a life of luxury. I'm happy you feel that way, but I still have to work, she replied softly. Well, if you ever change your mind, you can resign whenever you want. Fang Suan offered a small smile and turned away, masking a heavy heart. Silly brother, she thought. If I don't go to work, how will you continue to make so much money? 5 million? Do you really think wealth just falls from the sky? Ding. The host manipulated events behind the scenes, causing the protagonist Fang Heng to fail in his attempt to impress the heroine. 200 villain points awarded. Wang Haoran removed his Bluetooth headset, a smirk playing on his lips. Everything was unfolding exactly as planned. Fang Suan was convinced her brother's windfall was a gift from her benefactor. In reality, he had only promised her a raise of 100,000 a month. For a beauty of her caliber, the price was a bargain. If an innocent woman like Fang Suan had truly turned bad on the open market, any number of wealthy moguls would have started the bidding at 500,000. I really am a bad person, Wang Haoran mused. But destiny had cast him as the great villain, and he found he quite enjoyed the role. He pulled up his system panel to review his progress. His villain points had reached 3,300. Instead of gambling on the lottery, he decided to invest in raw power. He weighed his options. He could upgrade his poison techniques or exchange points for internal strength. Xiao Yifeng possessed master-level medical skills. While Wang Haoran had mastered the Supreme Poison Sutra, his actual application was only at the advanced level. To truly threaten the protagonist, he would need to reach the supreme level, which cost 4,000 points. Even then, the protagonist's halo acted as a shield. Until he could suppress Xiao Yifeng's luck, a direct assassination attempt was too risky. Luck would simply intervene to save the target. He decided on a different path. He spent 3,000 points to exchange for 6 years of internal skill. Instantly, his combat power surged from 289 to 559. It was a massive leap, though still far behind Xiao Yifeng's 983. He needed more points, more auras. He needed to continue shearing the wool from Fang Heng. And the shears, of course, were Fang Suan. He dialed his mother. "My dear son," Zhenli's voice was energetic over the sound of rustling papers. She was clearly still working. "You haven't slept yet. Why the sudden call? There's a parent-teacher meeting at the school tomorrow. Mom is very busy tomorrow. Should we handle it as usual?" she asked. In the past, both Wang Xiang and Zhenli were too consumed by their respective empires to attend. They usually sent a driver. "Not as usual," Wang Haoran replied. "You don't need to come. I want someone else to represent me this time." "No problem. Who do you have in mind?" "Your secretary." The next morning, Wang Haoran arrived at school as usual. During recess, a heavy cloud of anxiety hung over the classroom. For some, the parent-teacher meeting was a source of stress, because their parents couldn't make it. For others, it was the fear of teachers exposing their poor grades. "If I had known, I would have stayed home like Chu Bai," Chen Zishi muttered, glancing at the empty seat beside him. Wang Haoran looked at the vacant desk. He knew Chu Bai wasn't skipping because of the meeting. Those efficient scientific lunatics had likely already scooped him up. At this moment, the former protagonist was probably being strapped to a table for analysis. Without his aura, Chu Bai was nothing more than a background character. Wang Haoran stepped out of the classroom and walked toward the balcony. He found Qin Yunhan leaning against the railing, her eyes fixed on the distance. "Worried about the meeting?" he asked, stepping up beside her. "Yeah. But I'm used to it. My dad never shows up. I'll probably just spend the whole afternoon standing in the hallway as punishment." She tried to sound indifferent, but the mask was slipping. "My parents have never participated either," Wang Haoran said with a sudden, soft sigh. "They always send someone in their place." "It seems we're in the same boat," she whispered. Qin Yunhan looked at him, feeling a sudden, sharp pang of kinship. They were both children of the elite, heirs to business empires, and yet both were fundamentally alone in the ways that mattered. In that moment, she felt as if she had found a true confidant. Ding. Heroine Qin Yunhan's favorability has increased by 5. Total favorability 35. Friendly. Ding. The host has influenced the plot direction. 100 villain points awarded. Chapter 68. The parent-teacher meeting. "Who did you usually call for these meetings?" Haoran asked, leaning against the balcony railing. "Uncle Li, our housekeeper. But I don't want to involve him this time." Qin Yunhan stared out at the campus, her lower lip tucked in a pout. She was currently at odds with her father, and had no desire to let him or Uncle Li know anything about her school life. "If you don't call him, you'll need someone else," Haoran pointed out. "Unless you really enjoy the prospect of standing in the hallway all afternoon. Even if I wanted to find a proxy, I'd need my father's help to arrange it. And I am definitely not speaking to him right now. What if I find someone for you?" Yunhan's eyes lit up, her frustration vanishing in a heartbeat. "You could do that. Consider it done." "Wait a moment." Haoran pulled out his phone and dialed Zhenli. The conversation was brief, professional, and efficient. He hung up after a few seconds. "It's settled. I used to think you were so difficult to get along with," Yunhan said, her smile beaming as she looked at him with newfound appreciation. But you're actually so nice. Thank you, Haoran. It's a small thing. Ding. The host has made heroine Sumwian jealous. 100 villain points awarded. Hey, Yunhan whispered, nudging him slightly. Why is that Sumwian from your class constantly peeking over here? Haoran didn't turn around. He kept his expression neutral, feigning ignorance. Is she? I hadn't noticed. She definitely is. I wouldn't lie about that. Maybe she's just struck by how beautiful you are, Haoran said, letting a bit of easy flattery slip through. She's probably just staring in awe. Well, I am pretty, Yunhan admitted, her natural narcissism flaring up. She tilted her head thoughtfully. But Sumwian is good-looking too. It seemed strange for her to stare. She's attractive, sure, but she doesn't compare to you. She's likely just jealous. You really think I'm better looking than her? Yunhan asked, her voice brimming with delight. Without a doubt. Haoran nodded with practiced sincerity. It was a lie, of course. Both girls were top-tier beauties, distinct as a plum blossom and an orchid. But in the world of a villain, the truth was secondary to the result. The school bell rang, cutting their conversation short. Haoran bid Yunhan goodbye and headed back to his desk. No sooner had he sat down than his phone vibrated in his pocket. It was a WeChat message from an unexpected source, Sumwian. She had rarely brought a phone to school in the past, but it seemed she had recently changed her habits. You two seemed to be having a very intense conversation. What were you talking about? Haoran's thumbs flew across the screen. We were debating who was more beautiful, you or her. I assume you told her she was the winner then? The reply came back instantly. Haoran was impressed. For someone who avoided technology, she was a remarkably fast typist. She was also uncannily accurate. Well, she asked directly. Haoran messaged back. I had to be polite, so I said she was prettier. But in my heart, you're the one who is truly beautiful. Liar. All right, I confess. You're both stunning. But there is one area where you are much stronger than Qin Yunhan. Which one? You're older than her. Vulgar. Irregular. A string of angry emojis followed. Ding. The host has provoked heroine Sumwian's heart. 100 villain points awarded. Haoran smiled to himself. Women were such duplicitous creatures. Their angry words rarely matched the fluttering in their chests. The sound of high heels echoed in the hallway as Song Zhenyu entered the room with her textbooks. Sumwian reacted like a startled thief, shoving her phone deep into her desk. The morning flew by in a blur of lectures. By the afternoon, the campus was bustling with parents arriving for the scheduled meeting. Haoran's requested proxies arrived on time. Leading the way was Fang Suan, followed by another woman in her late 20s, another employee from Gaoxi Tianxiang. While the second woman was eye-catching in her professional attire, she was easily overshadowed by Fang Suan's elegance. The courtyard was filled with middle-aged parents. Many of the men found their eyes wandering toward the two workplace beauties, while the wives glared with undisguised envy, whispering sharp critiques under their breath. Hello, young Master Wang. The women greeted him respectfully. Fang Suan's expression was stiff, her movements slightly unnatural. She was clearly fighting to maintain a professional mask. Secretary Fang, for today, you'll be acting as my sister. It makes things simpler, Haoran explained. I understand. She gave a stiff nod. The second woman stepped forward. And my role, young master. One moment. Haoran signaled to Qin Yunhan, who was lingering nearby. This is the person I found for you. If the teacher asks, she's your sister. You should go somewhere quiet to catch her up on your background, so she doesn't slip up during the meeting. Got it. Yunhan beamed at the newcomer. Follow me, sister. We'll go to the flower garden. It's quiet there. The woman followed with a smile. She was thrilled to be out of the office. Between her regular salary and the massive bonus Zenli had promised, this was the best assignment she'd had all year. Fang Suan, however, remained troubled. Her brow was furrowed in a deep frown. Secretary Fang, you look unwell, Haoran noted, his voice dripping with false concern. I didn't sleep well yesterday. I'm feeling a bit uncomfortable, but I can fulfill my duties. Her eyes met his, a silent, pained meaning hidden behind the words that only Haoran could decode. Wait a second, Haoran called out to the retreating Yunhan. What is it? Secretary Fang is feeling a bit faint. Could you give me the key to your room? I'd like her to rest there for a while before the meeting starts. Sure. Yunhan didn't hesitate. Haoran had secured the room for her in the first place. She could hardly refuse a small favor. She handed over the key and disappeared toward the garden with her proxy. Come on, Haoran said, lifting the key. I'll show you the way. Fang Suan followed him silently. They reached the faculty suite where Yunhan and Zhao Zhao were staying. Thank you, Fang Suan said, her voice filled with genuine relief. The physical discomfort of standing was becoming unbearable. Don't mention it. Haoran stepped inside behind her. The heavy thud of the door closing was followed by the distinct, metallic click of the lock. Fang Suan spun around, her eyes wide with sudden realization. You. Haoran only smirked. Chapter 69. The Reaper and the Director. Ding. The host captured Fang Suan, one of the heroines. 500 villain points awarded. Fang Hung's protagonist halo, -25. Fang Suan's heroine halo, -25. Host's villain halo +50. Wang Haoran accepted the reward with a flicker of internal satisfaction. While the rewards for repeated captures were significantly lower than the first time, 500 points and 50 halo points remained a generous haul. 15 minutes remained before the meeting. Wang Haoran and Fang Suan walked out of the faculty room, smoothing their clothes. They had only traveled a few steps when they rounded a corner and came face to face with Song Zhenyu. Haoran's pulse spiked, but he forced his features into a calm mask. He greeted her with a practiced smile. Sister Zhenyu, no big or small talk here. Call me Teacher Song. Song Zhenyu glanced around at the other faculty members in the hall and refuted him with a straight face. This is my sister, not an outsider, Haoran said, his smile widening. She was feeling a little unwell just now, so I brought her here to rest for a bit. Your sister? Song Zhenyu nodded, her professional guard dropping slightly. She politely extended her hand toward Fang Suan. Hello, I'm Song Zhenyu, Wang Haoran's head teacher. Hello, my name is Wang Suan. Fang Suan nearly stumbled over her own name, correcting herself just in time. The two women shook hands politely. As they pulled away, Song Zhenyu's brow furrowed. She rubbed her palm, feeling a strange stickiness. I'm so sorry, Fang Suan said quickly, her face flushing. I just applied a bit of hand cream and didn't rub it in properly. She reached into her bag, pulled out a wet tissue, and handed it to the teacher. It's fine. Song Zhenyu wiped her hand and checked her watch. The parents' meeting is about to start. Let's head to the conference hall. Of course. Fang Suan nodded eagerly, desperate to end the conversation. She turned to lead the way, but she hadn't taken 3 steps before Song Zhenyu spoke again. Miss Wang, your stockings. They look torn. What? Fang Suan gasped. She spun around, checking her reflection in a nearby window. High on her thigh, a jagged hole ruined the smooth line of the black fabric. She shot an inadvertent, panicked glance at Wang Haoran before looking back at Song Zhenyu with embarrassment. I must have snagged them on something. Standing in a knee-length professional skirt, with a hole in her hosiery, was the height of indecency for a woman in her position. Miss Wang, our figures are quite similar, Song Zhenyu said. I have a spare pair in my office. If you don't mind, you can wear mine. You actually have stockings in your office? Haoran asked, unable to hide his surprise. He had never seen Song Zhenyu wear them. I'm a woman, aren't I? Why wouldn't I have them? Song Zhenyu gave him a playful, sideways look. Her profession made such attire inconvenient for daily wear, but that didn't mean she didn't own them. She led Fang Suan into her room. A few minutes later, they emerged. Fang Suan's black hosiery had been replaced by a pair of deep purple ones. The color choice didn't surprise Haoran. Thanks to his perspective abilities, he already knew Song Zhenyu had a soft spot for purple. Some said women who favored that color were inherently romantic. He wondered if that held true for his teacher, but he knew better than to ask. Not yet, anyway. The 3 of them arrived at the conference hall together. The room was a cacophony of loud voices as parents gathered. The hall was divided into sections, each containing 40 to 50 chairs marked with student names. Parents took their seats while students were required to stand in the aisles beside them. For the high achievers, this was a place of pride. For the poor students, it was a trial court where every criticism from a teacher felt like a sentence. Wang Haoran, however, moved with the confidence of someone who had nothing to fear. Haoran, a voice called out from across the hall. He turned to see a stunning woman walking toward them with brisk, confident steps. Hello, Director Tang. Good afternoon, Director Tang. Faculty members greeted her with deep respect as she passed, but Tang Bingyun ignored them all. She walked straight to Wang Haoran. Hello, Aunt Tang, Haoran said politely. The title made Tang Bingyun's lip twitch, her red lipstick shimmering as she suppressed a grimace. She quickly recovered and looked at Fang Suan. And who is this? My sister. Sister? As far as I know, Zhenli only has one son. She's my godsister. I see. Tang Bingyun turned to Fang Suan with a polite nod. Hello, I'm Tang Bingyun. Aunt, hello. Fang Suan started to mimic Haoran's greeting but stopped herself. Tang Bingyun looked barely a year or 2 older than her. Calling her aunt would have been an insult. The restraint immediately earned her points in Tang Bingyun's book. Miss Wang, your lipstick is lovely, Tang Bingyun said. What shade is that? Since they were roughly the same age, Tang Bingyun saw an excellent opportunity to bridge the gap and lower the perceived seniority Haoran was trying to impose on her. It's maple leaf red, Fang Suan replied. It suits you perfectly. You're not just beautiful, you're clearly an expert with makeup. No, I just did it myself. It's quite rough, Fang Suan said, feeling a bit cautious. She had heard the teachers call this woman the school director. In Fang Xian's mind, she was just a secretary, and Tang Bingyun was a titan. You are the one who is truly beautiful, Miss Tang. Your makeup is flawless. Miss Wang, don't play humble with me, Tang Bingyun said with a playful, mock-stern look. If you don't want to share your secrets, just say so. The compliment made Fang Suan glow. Women loved to be praised, especially by those they considered peers or superiors in beauty. Her guard dropped instantly. Not at all, Miss Tang. I'll tell you whatever you want to know. The two women fell into an animated conversation. Tang Bingyun was an expert communicator, and she intentionally charmed the secretary, closing the distance between them in seconds. Haoran, bored by the talk of cosmetics and fashion, let his gaze wander across the crowded hall. His eyes stopped on a figure near the back. Xiao Yifeng? He whispered to himself. The protagonist was the last person he expected to see here. Chapter 70. Fire in the hall. Xiao Yifeng swapped his shabby suit for a crisp school uniform today. He wasn't very old to begin with, and standing among the crowd of teenagers, he blended in perfectly with the ordinary students. The parent-teacher meeting brought a constant stream of people through the gates. Xiao Yifeng took advantage of the chaos to sneak inside. He moved through the throngs, eyes narrowed as they darted toward every attractive girl in his vicinity. Soon, a striking beauty caught his attention. Sun Weian. In terms of grace and figure, she stood on equal footing with Qin Yunhan. Xiao Yifeng felt that same jolt of greedy surprise he had experienced when first seeing the eldest Miss Qin. His heart hammered against his ribs as he immediately closed the distance to start a conversation. Wang Haoran watched the exchange from a distance. He wasn't surprised. A protagonist is like a dog and a heroine is like a meat bun. How can a dog resist when he smells the treat? Sun Weian had originally belonged to Chu Bai's story. Since Chu Bai's downfall, that original plot had collapsed, but her identity as a heroine remained. Through the subtle, shifting mechanics of this world, she was being pulled into Xiao Yifeng's orbit. Haoran didn't panic. He didn't even move to stop the approach. He was too lazy to intervene, because he knew Sun Weian was different from Qin Yunhan or Mu Zhaozhao. Her heart was already occupied. Capturing her interest would be a mountain even a protagonist couldn't climb. Sure enough, Xiao Yifeng hadn't uttered a dozen words before Sun Weian turned away, her face twisted in a look of pure disgust. Xiao Yifeng touched his nose, his expression sour, but his wandering eyes soon found a new target. He spotted the eldest miss. That girl with the baby face, and the explosive figure next to Yunhan must be Mu Zhaozhao, Xiao Yifeng whispered, swallowing hard. She's incredible. Wang Haoran watched the protagonist's lustful gaze and felt a prickle of suspicion. It wasn't the man's lechery that bothered him. It was a realization of the laws governing this world. In these urban novels, disaster follows a high-combat protagonist like a shadow. Wherever they go, trouble erupts. It was the Conan effect. Where the hero appears, someone usually dies. Xiao Yifeng's presence meant something unusual was about to happen, and it would likely involve the girls. Haoran decided he couldn't let the man linger. Driving him away would be simple enough since he wasn't a student. Haoran signaled to his three lackeys, Fan Jian, Fan Tong, and Qin Xiaosheng. He whispered a few instructions. The trio immediately marched towards Xiao Yifeng. Within seconds, their loud, accusatory voices rang out over the crowd. Who are you? You don't look like a student here. Where did you come from? Look at him sneaking around. He's definitely up to no good. He's probably here to steal. Security. Where is the security? The outcry brought 7 or 8 guards charging over. They surrounded Xiao Yifeng, demanding to see a student ID. Mizusawa Middle School was the crown jewel of the education group, and its security was elite, staffed by men trained to the level of professional bodyguards. Xiao Yifeng, of course, had no ID to show. The guards grew suspicious and moved to detain him. But the protagonist was a man of immense pride and even greater strength. He wasn't about to be captured by common guards. He lunged forward, breaking through the perimeter. With 15 years of internal strength fueling his limbs, a simple shove sent a burly man flying 5 meters back. He vanished into the distance, leaving the guards eating his dust. Wang Haoran watched the escape with a neutral expression. He didn't need the man captured. He only needed him gone. The disturbance settled quickly. The parent-teacher meeting proceeded as planned. One by one, the head teachers took the stage to offer praise or criticism. Song Jinyu stood before the crowd and gave Wang Haoran special recognition for his stellar academic performance. Envious glances prickled his skin. An ordinary student would have been beaming with pride, but Haoran couldn't enjoy the moment. His focus remained locked on Qin Yunhan and Mu Zhaozhao. He waited. 30 minutes passed without incident. Maybe driving Xiao Yifeng away canceled the event, he thought. Fire! There's a fire! The panicked scream shattered the calm of the hall. The parents froze, confused, until thick, acrid smoke began to drift through the windows. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Everyone realized this wasn't a drill. Run! The hall erupted into chaos. Screams filled the air as chairs were knocked aside. Slow down. Everyone, stay calm and leave in an orderly fashion. Tang Bingyun shouted, her voice strained as she tried to manage the crowd. But the smoke billowed in faster, darker and hotter. This conference room sat on the 6th floor. If they didn't escape now, they would be trapped. Panic turned to a stampede. 500 people surged toward the only 2 exits. People collided. They tripped. They trampled over one another. In the crush, Mu Zhaozhao stumbled. She cried out as she went down, her ankle twisting. Haoran watched the scene unfold. Of course, a heroine's halo always brings a crisis. But this served his purposes. Qin Yunhan showed her loyalty, urging Mu Zhaozhao's grandfather to run ahead with the crowd. She stayed behind, trying to pull Zhaozhao to her feet. She was a pampered princess with little physical strength, but her character was solid. She refused to leave her friend behind, even as she struggled to support Zhaozhao's weight. Haoran moved to help, but he stopped. Beside him, Fang Suan was struggling. Between the events of the previous night and her recent discomfort, she could barely walk, let alone navigate a stampede. He couldn't leave one heroine to save another. I'll carry you, Haoran said, bowing his back slightly. Fang Suan stared at him, stunned. She had expected him to abandon her to save himself. Ding. Heroine Fang Suan's favorability has increased by 10. Total favorability 30. Very friendly. Ding. The host has influenced the plot direction. 200 villain points awarded. Chapter 71. Brave Rescue. What are you doing? Hurry up. Wang Haoran urged. Fang Suan nodded quickly, leaning onto his back and looping her arms around his neck. Without a second of hesitation, Haoran hoisted her up and sprinted. He surged from the 6th floor to the 1st in a single, adrenaline-fueled breath, only stopping once he reached the safety of the open pavement outside. From the safety of the courtyard, the source of the disaster became clear. Orange flames licked out from the 2nd floor, growing hungrier and more aggressive by the second. Haoran took one deep, centering breath and turned back toward the inferno. What are you doing? Get back here. Fang Suan's voice was a desperate shriek. Haoran didn't respond. He didn't have the breath to waste. He plunged back into the building, his boots pounding against the concrete stairs. He reached the 5th floor landing and found exactly what he expected: Qin Yunhan and Mu Zhaozhao. The 2 girls were moving with agonizing slowness. At their current pace, the thick smoke on the 2nd floor would swallow the exit before they even reached it. They were alone in the stairwell, paralyzed by a mix of exhaustion and terror. When they saw Haoran charging back up toward them, their faces transformed from despair to pure, tearful relief. Qin Yunhan, your feet are fine, keep moving. Mu Zhaozhao, get on my back. Now, Haoran barked, bending his knees to offer his shoulders. Ding. Heroine Mu Zhaozhao's favorability has increased by 20. Total 20, very friendly. Ding. Heroine Qin Yunhan's favorability has increased by 10. Total 45, friendly. Ding. The host has influenced the plot direction. 500 villain points awarded. Thank you. Mu Zhaozhao gasped. With Yunhan's frantic help, she collapsed onto Haoran's back. Haoran felt the sudden, soft weight pressing against him. What on earth did they feed this girl to make her grow like this? Among all the women he had encountered, none possessed a figure as striking as Mu Zhaozhao's. With Zhaozhao secured, their pace doubled. Yunhan followed closely as they descended to the 3rd floor. By now, the heat was a physical wall. The flames from the 2nd floor were already clawing at the ceiling of the landing below. Every room on this level was reinforced with solid security bars. Jumping was impossible. The stairwell was the only path, but rushing through the 2nd floor meant risking severe burns or scalding steam. Retreating to the 6th floor was just as lethal. In a fire, the smoke is the true reaper. It chokes the lungs long before the heat touches the skin. What do we do? Qin Yunhan asked. Her skin was pale, turned a ghostly white despite the blistering air. Both girls were trembling. For young women who prized their beauty, the thought of being scarred by the flames was a horror more visceral than death itself. Stay right here. Haoran set Zhao Zhao down. He turned and sprinted back up to the 6th-floor conference hall. He didn't look for tools, he grabbed the heavy window curtains and tore them down with a violent, rhythmic wrenching of his shoulders. Bundling the fabric under his arm, he raced back down to the 3rd floor. Zhao Zhao, you can't run, so I'm taking you out first. Yunhan, do not move. Stay low and wait for me. The girls were past the point of argument. They could only nod and follow his lead. Zhao Zhao climbed back onto his shoulders. This time, Haoran ignored the sensation of her weight. He draped the thick, heavy curtains over both of them, shielding as much skin as possible. Deep within his chest, Haoran called upon his internal strength. He circulated his true qi, projecting it outward to form a thin, invisible barrier of protection. He felt a surge of gratitude that he hadn't wasted his points on poison techniques the night before. Without this internal energy, he would have been nothing more than a roasted pig. Protected by the shroud of fabric and the shimmer of his qi, Haoran charged. He surged through the high-temperature stairwell, moving like a ghost through the haze, and burst out of the building. He set Mu Zhao Zhao down on the grass and immediately spun around, vanishing back into the smoke for Qin Yunhan. He repeated the process with practiced precision, bringing the second girl into the sunlight. Once the rescue was complete, Haoran allowed his qi to recede. The exhaustion hit him like a physical blow. His muscles turned to lead, and he collapsed onto the grass, his chest heaving. 6 years of internal skill was a meager reserve. Had he possessed a decade of training, this rescue would have felt like a casual stroll through a park. Ding! The host successfully intercepted the protagonist's role, rescuing Qin Yunhan and Mu Zhao Zhao. 500 villain points awarded. Xiao Yifeng's protagonist Halo, -25. Host's villain Halo, +25. Haoran, are you alright? Are you hurt? Tang Bingyun was the first to reach him, her eyes searching his face for injuries. I'm fine, he managed, waving a dismissive hand. Just tired. You were so brave, Song Zhenyu added, her voice thick with emotion. As your teacher, I couldn't be more proud. Don't stay on the ground, it's filthy. Here, let me help you. Fang Suan knelt beside him, offering her shoulder. Haoran leaned heavily against her. Fang Suan was still feeling the effects of her own physical strain, but she gritted her teeth and supported his weight. In her eyes, his heroism had earned him this much and more. Su Muan broke away from her mother's side, overcome by a mix of shyness and worry. She hurried to his other side, gripping his arm to steady him. Haoran looked at her and leaned in, whispering so only she could hear. I thought I was vulgar and irregular. Why are you so close to me now? Su Muan had been on the verge of tears, but his teasing made her huff in annoyance. I'm only helping because you look pathetic. Don't read into it. Haoran chuckled, letting the lie slide. He looked around, wondering why Wen Jing hadn't approached. A vibration in his pocket gave him the answer. He pulled out his phone and saw a message from her. I'm not going home tonight. He quickly locked the screen before anyone could see. This girl was truly the most direct of them all. Young man, a voice interrupted. An elderly man dressed in the traditional robes of a scholar stepped forward. He bowed deeply toward Haoran. Thank you for saving my Zhao Zhao. This old man is in your debt. The man's attire was an oddity among the modern crowd, yet he carried an air of Confucian grace that made him seem perfectly in place. He did not have the look of an ordinary citizen. I only did what was necessary, sir. Please, there's no need to bow, Haoran said, reaching out to steady the man. He, humble and polite. A rare combination these days, the old man praised. Ding. The host improved the perception of supporting character Mu Cong 200 villain points awarded. A supporting character? Haoran was surprised. The reward was an unexpected bonus. Soon, a crowd of faculty and parents surrounded him, their voices a chorus of gratitude and admiration. Despite the bone-deep fatigue, Haoran knew the effort was worth it. If he hadn't driven Xiao Yifeng away, it would have been the protagonist standing here, basking in the adoration of 6 different heroines. If Xiao Yifeng had been the hero of this day, the man would have been untouchable on campus. For Haoran, that would have been a living nightmare. He closed his eyes for a moment, savoring the silence of a plan well executed. Chapter 72. You are sick. The executive suite of the Qin Group headquarters hummed with the quiet drone of central air. Qin Kai stepped out of the boardroom, his mind still buried in the logistics of the morning meeting, only for his secretary to deliver a report. Xiao Yifeng was downstairs. It was currently Xiao Yifeng's shift to protect his daughter. This sudden appearance without notice left Qin Kai cold. He didn't like his employees breaking protocol, especially when it involved his daughter's safety. After a brief pause, he signaled his assistant to bring the man up. Xiao Yifeng stepped into the office a few minutes later. "Why aren't you with Yunhan?" Qin Kai asked, his tone clipped. "What are you doing here?" Xiao Yifeng stood with a bizarre, strained expression. His hands flexed at his sides. "I was protecting her, but things took a turn. You sneaked into the school in a student uniform, got spotted by security, and then beat the guards and fled when they asked for an ID?" Qin Kai rubbed his temples as the story unfolded. His voice rose with a touch of disbelief. "You weren't there to steal. You were there to protect her. All you had to do was cooperate. A single phone call from me would have smoothed the whole thing over." In the eyes of a business mogul like Qin Kai, Xiao Yifeng's actions were baffling. A minor misunderstanding, a simple hurdle no bigger than a sesame seed, had been escalated into a potential criminal matter because of the man's ego. Xiao Yifeng bristled. Being scolded by a man he viewed as a mere civilian burned. Since his return to the world, apart from the beatings he took from his old master, he had never backed down from a confrontation. Those guards were like stinking fish and rotten shrimp. Did they really think they could arrest him? He kept the arrogance buried deep, offering a half-hearted excuse instead. "Uncle Qin, those guards were being aggressive. I didn't have much of a choice. Forget it. What's done is done." Qin Kai waved a hand, dismissing the apology. "I'll hire a lawyer to handle the fallout. It shouldn't be a catastrophic problem." He reached for his desk phone and buzzed Uncle Lee to bring the car around. "The lawyer hasn't arrived yet, so stay away from the school for now. No need to make a bad situation worse. I have another appointment, and I want you to come with me." Back at Mizusawa Middle School, the open space outside the charred building was a sea of people. Teachers moved through the crowd with clipboards, shouting names and checking off students and parents. The fire department had arrived shortly after the call, and the blaze was finally extinguished. Plumes of gray smoke drifted into the sky as police officers established a perimeter. The cause remained a mystery. It could have been an accident or deliberate arson. Investigators moved in, their boots crunching on damp debris, as they began the tedious task of gathering evidence. Officers fanned out to interview the faculty and parents. Among the uniforms, one woman stood out. She was strikingly beautiful, her features sharp and heroic. Many of the fathers and male students found themselves glancing her way, their eyes lingering on her confident stride. Wang Haoran was among those watching, but his gaze was analytical. Experience had taught him a hard lesson: any woman this beautiful was likely a heroine. He didn't like to guess. He spent 100 villain points to trigger a scan. Heroine, Ling Dunya. Combat Strength, 188. Charm, 201. Heroine Halo, 465. Skills Advanced Mixed Martial Arts. Favorability, 0. Stranger. His suspicions were confirmed. It was a classic trope of urban fiction. Every protagonist with high combat skills eventually crossed paths with a beautiful, high-ranking policewoman. Ling Dunya was clearly the archetype. Her combat stats were impressive. Chubai had only reached 155 before his downfall, and he had been capable of taking on several men at once. With a score of 188, Ling Dunya could likely fight 20 ordinary men without breaking a sweat. "Excuse me, are you Wang Haoran?" The voice broke his concentration. Ling Dunya stood before him, her eyes scanning him with a mix of curiosity and professional interest. "I am," Haoran replied, his voice steady. Ding. Heroine Ling Dunya's favorability has increased by 20. Total 20, very friendly. Ding. The host has influenced the plot direction. 200 villain points awarded. "You were incredibly brave today," she said, offering him a small, genuine smile and a thumbs up. "Well done." Haoran understood immediately. She had been interviewing witnesses who told her about the boy who charged into the fire twice to save his peers. For a woman with a rigid sense of justice, that kind of bravery was an instant draw. He felt a flicker of triumph. If Xiao Yifeng hadn't been chased off, he would have been the one receiving this praise. He would have been the hero in her eyes. As she stepped closer, Haoran noticed she wasn't wearing a drop of makeup. Her beauty was entirely natural, radiant even under the harsh sun. However, as he looked at her, he felt a strange sensation. The initial rush of blood slowed. His mind cooled instantly as he noticed something hidden beneath her heroic exterior. Ling Dunya was sick. Another routine. Haoran wanted to groan. It was the oldest trick in the book. A heroine with a hidden ailment and a protagonist with master-level medical skills. If Xiao Yifeng had met her, he would have diagnosed her on the spot, treated her, and won her heart in one move. Toss in a few dangerous police cases where the protagonist saves her life, and the romance would be sealed. "I need to ask you a few questions about the fire," Ling Dunya said. She noticed his slightly distracted state and softened her tone. Are you up for it now? I am. But I'd prefer a quiet place, Haoran said, gesturing toward the nearby gym. We can talk in the sports room. Ling Dunya didn't object. The gym doors were open to allow students to sign out equipment. Inside, the air was cool and smelled of rubber and hardwood. They walked past racks of basketballs and footballs until they were isolated from the noise outside. Haoran turned to face her, his expression cold and direct. Sister officer, he said, his voice echoing slightly in the quiet room. You are sick. Chapter 73. The Tang Family Manor. Ling Dunya froze. Had she not already formed a favorable impression of Wang Haoran, she certainly would have taken his words as an insult. I'm sick. Then tell me, what exactly is wrong with me? Ling Dunya asked, her voice deceptively calm. If I've guessed correctly, your right knee is badly injured. How do you know that? Ling Dunya's composure shattered. She stared at him, her eyes wide with shock. When I watched you walk earlier, there was a slight incongruity in your stride. It wasn't natural. It was the result of a past trauma. Of course, the truth was far less clinical. Haoran had seen the damage through his perspective ability. Since he couldn't explain that, he leaned on his fabricated medical expertise. I walk very steadily, she challenged. Where is the incongruity? What ordinary people miss, only those with extraordinary eyesight and superb medical skill can detect. You know medicine? Ling Dunya was becoming more surprised by the second. My ancestors were famous doctors. I've studied their arts since I was a child. Just from watching your gait, I knew you had been hurt. I'd wager the injury is over 3 years old, and that it was complicated by poison. This was a deduction born of the Supreme Poison Sutra. Through his perspective vision, the bones of Ling Dunya's right knee appeared a dull, sickly gray. It was the telltale sign of a wound that had healed over a lingering, residual toxicity. Ling Dunya looked as if she had seen a ghost. 3 years ago, my knee was stabbed by a poisonous dagger. It healed, or so the doctors said. But after 6 months, an inexplicable pain began to radiate from the joint. I've been to the hospital dozens of times for examinations and treatment, but nothing works. Most of the time it doesn't affect my work, so I eventually stopped paying attention to it. If you leave this untreated, you will be paralyzed within a year, Haoran warned. He wasn't being an alarmist. Left alone, the rot would eventually claim the limb. Then, what should I do? Despite her mental toughness, panic began to seep into her voice. Since you can diagnose it so easily, you can heal it, right? Of course, poison was designed to kill, but it could also save. Just as medicine could be a cure, or a toxin, the art of poison functioned on the principle of fighting venom with venom. I don't want to be paralyzed, Ling Dunya said, her professional mask slipping. Can you help me? Tell me what kind of reward you require. My ancestors had a strict rule. They only charged a single penny for a consultation. To keep pace with the times, I've adjusted that to 1 yuan. Other than that, you will simply need to cover the cost of the medicinal materials. No other compensation is required. Ling Dunya let out a long breath of relief. Then I thank you in advance. There is one thing you must remember. I will treat you, but you cannot tell anyone else about the procedure. Furthermore, you must absolutely forbid anyone else from attempting to treat this condition. Ling Dunya nodded heavily. She didn't question the request, assuming it was simply another ancient family tradition passed down through the Wang lineage. As soon as I have a moment, I will prepare the necessary medicines. For now, let's get back to your questions. Right. Ling Dunya shook off her personal worries and focused on her duty. Did you notice any suspicious individuals near the building before the fire broke out? Suspicious people? Haoran nodded firmly. Yes. Who? Someone was pretending to be a student. When the security guards spotted him, he knocked them over and fled the scene in a hurry. What did this person look like? I was too far away to see his face clearly, but I know who saw him up close. Haoran stepped to the gym door and signaled for Fan Jian, Fan Tong, and Qin Xiaosheng to join them. Their report would be far more credible than his own. The 3 brothers hurried into the gym. Classmates, can you describe the person who was posing as a student? Ling Dunya asked, her pen poised over her notebook. He was about 5'9", Fan Jian started. Looked to be about our age. Neither fat nor thin, Fan Tong added. Actually, he was quite handsome. As the 3 described Xiao Yifeng, Ling Dunya's hand flew across the page. Once she finished the sketch of the description, she looked up. Please, I need you 3 to come with me to the security office. I need you to identify this man on the surveillance footage. The 3 brothers agreed immediately and followed her out. Haoran watched them go, a thin smile playing on his lips. He had done his part. Now, he just had to wait for the harvest. Uncle Li drove the black sedan to the outskirts of the city, pulling up before a simple, elegant manor. An old servant had been waiting at the gate. He bowed to Qin Kai and Xiao Yifeng, leading them through a series of curved, minimalist corridors that opened into a lush garden. In a central pavilion, an old man with a flowing gray beard sat hunched over a jade bracelet, scrutinizing the stone through a magnifying glass. "Master, the guests have arrived," the servant announced before quietly withdrawing. "Old Tang, long time no see. You're looking as sharp as ever," Qin Kai called out heartily. The old man, Tang Lao, set down the jade and looked up. His eyes flicked briefly over Xiao Yifeng before settling on Qin Kai with a warm smile. "Haha, I'm an old man now, brother Qin. You're the one in your prime. You've got the Qingling City real estate market cornered. I'd say you own at least 60% of the cake. You flatter me. I've just had a bit of luck. Compared to you, building a jade empire from nothing, I'm an amateur." Tang Lao stroked his white beard, a look of pride dancing in his eyes. Qin Kai was a veteran of the business world. He knew exactly how to grease the wheels of a conversation. "Brother Qin, don't just stand there. Sit." Qin Kai took a seat on the stone bench, his eyes drifting to the bracelet on the table. "The color and the cut are superb. On the open market, that has to be worth 10 million at least, right?" "Good eye. It's glass-grade imperial green, carved by the master Lu Feng. Its value is somewhere between 11 and 13 million, but I'm not selling." Tang Lao looked at the piece with grandfatherly affection. "It was a gift from my granddaughter, Bing Yun." "Ah, Miss Tang Bing Yun. She's running half the family business now, isn't she? To be a brilliant manager and a filial granddaughter. I truly envy you," Qin Kai said. He let out a long sigh of mock sorrow. "In comparison, my daughter is a constant worry. Due to some recent business friction, I'm worried about retaliation. I hired a bodyguard, but she's willful and refuses to listen. I'm planning to have the bodyguard enroll in her class at school." Tang Lao looked surprised. He understood why Qin Kai was here, but he was puzzled. If it was a school matter, shouldn't he be talking to his granddaughter, Tang Bingyun? Chapter 74. The protagonist is arrested. "How old are these bodyguards you're mentioning?" Tang Lao asked. "It's the young man next to me." Qin Kai gestured towards Xiao Yifeng. "Oh, so young. In that case, enrolling him is perfectly fine." Tang Lao nodded, his shoulders relaxing. He had initially worried Qin Kai was trying to force a middle-aged mercenary into a classroom full of teenagers. With Xiao Yifeng, there was no issue of appearance. "But brother Qin, why didn't you go to Bingyun with this? If it were possible, I wouldn't dream of harassing you, Elder Tang." Qin Kai wore a mask of bitter frustration. "But Miss Tang Bingyun has blocked my number. I visited her office, only to be turned away at the door. I honestly don't know how I've offended her, so I came to see you instead." Tang Lao sighed, stroking his white beard. "I've left the education group entirely in Bingyun's hands. I haven't interfered in years. If she's taken this stance, she must have her reasons. I'm an old man, it's not my place to meddle." Qin Kai cursed the old fox silently. On the surface, his smile remained pleasant and deferential. "Mr. Tang, the commercial real estate in Times Square under my company's name is currently open for bidding. Are you interested? That's prime land. My Tang family is just a small business. I'm afraid we couldn't afford such high rent. 90% of the market rate. What do you think?" "The jade industry has been sluggish lately," Tang Lao countered. "Even in a prime spot, we'd likely be working just to pay the landlord. 70%. Brother Qin, don't embarrass an old man. 50%. Bingyun is such a filial child," Tang Lao mused. "I can't force her to do something that makes her unhappy. 30%. Qin Kai's voice was tight. "She gave me such an expensive necklace just yesterday. How could I upset her today?" 1%. Qin Kai gritted his teeth. The economic loss from that rent reduction would be at least 30 million yuan. It was a staggering price for a single school admission. "Oh, very well." Tang Lao finally relented. "Since brother Qin insists, I will risk my relationship with my granddaughter to help you." Qin Kai stared at him, screaming insults in his mind. Old demon. Old fox. Tang Lao knew exactly how much Qin Kai's daughter's safety was worth. Tang Lao pulled out his phone and dialed Tang Bingyun right there in the pavilion. What should have been a brief request turned into a 10-minute conversation. Finally, he hung up. "How is it?" Qin Kai asked, his brow furrowed. "For some reason, Bingyun is dead set against Xiao Yifeng's admission. But I made it clear that this must happen." She didn't give a final answer. She said she'd call back in 10 minutes. Tang Lao gave a reassuring nod. "Don't worry, brother Qin. Your sincerity has moved me. I will see this through." Back at the school, the fire was out and the investigators had moved on, but the atmosphere remained charged with electricity. Students and faculty were still reeling from the shock. Under the school's direction, the parents began to depart, and students shuffled back to their classrooms for the afternoon sessions. Haoran, a word. Wang Haoran turned to see Tang Bingyun approaching. They walked to a secluded corner of the hallway where they couldn't be overheard. Qin Kai went to my grandfather, she said, her expression pained. He's convinced him to override my decision about Xiao Yifeng. I don't know what Qin Kai offered him, but Grandpa is determined. I'm in a difficult position. Haoran considered this. If he forced Tang Bingyun to fight her grandfather, it would damage their relationship and potentially lower her favorability. It was a losing move. Then follow your grandfather's wishes, Haoran replied smoothly. But you can make a single demand. What demand? Xiao Yifeng can enroll, but he must follow the normal process. The normal process? Tang Bingyun tilted her head, confused. Haoran stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper as he outlined his plan. As he spoke, Tang Bingyun's face cleared, replaced by a relieved, mischievous smile. She valued her bond with her grandfather and her loyalty to Haoran. This solution satisfied both. Ding. Heroine Tang Bingyun's favorability has increased by 5. Total 55. Love from the heart. Ding. The host has influenced the plot direction. 100 villain points awarded. Tang Bingyun pulled out her phone to call her grandfather back. At the manor, Tang Lao received the update and smiled. There is no longer a problem with the admission, Brother Qin. But, before he could finish, a servant hurried into the garden. Master, officers from the public bureau are at the gate. They say they're on official business. My Tang family is law-abiding. What could they want? Tang Lao's voice turned sharp. They aren't here for the family, sir. They're looking for the young man with President Qin. Let's go see. Tang Lao led the way, with Qin Kai and Xiao Yifeng following close behind. They reached the manor gates to find Ling Dunya waiting with several colleagues. Xiao Yifeng's eyes lit up the moment he saw her. Another one, he thought greedily. This city is full of top-tier beauties. We have reason to suspect you are involved in a recent assault and an arson incident, Ling Dunya said, her voice like cold steel. You need to come with us for questioning. Beauty, I'll admit to the fight, Xiao Yifeng said, crossing his arms with a cocky grin. But what does a fire have to do with me? We'll determine that during the investigation. Come with us. I'm sorry, but I don't feel like going anywhere right now. That isn't your choice to make. Ling Dunya signaled her colleagues to bring out the handcuffs. If you try to touch me, you do so at your own risk, Xiao Yifeng warned, his posture shifting into a subtle, dangerous stance. Yifeng, stop. Qin Kai stepped in, his voice urgent. Don't make this worse. Go with them. I'll have my lawyers handle it. Scuffling with school guards was one thing, resisting the police in front of Tang Lao was another entirely. Xiao Yifeng gritted his teeth, suppressed his urge to fight, and allowed himself to be led toward the police cruiser. Ding. The host's behind-the-scenes manipulation has led to the arrest of the protagonist. 200 villain points awarded. Chapter 75. The protagonist's routine failed. The air in the interrogation room was stale, smelling of old paper and industrial cleaner. Ling Dunya sat behind the metal desk, her posture rigid. Name: Xiao Yifeng. Gender: Xiao Yifeng leaned back in his chair, a smirk playing on his lips. Can't see such an obvious feature? Gender: Ling Dunya barked, her voice echoing off the concrete walls. Female, he quipped. Bang. Ling Dunya's palm slammed against the table. Cooperate with the investigation, or don't blame me for being rude. Beauty, getting angry like that isn't good for your health. You don't need to worry about my health, she replied, her face a mask of cold porcelain. You just need to answer the questions. Fine, but tell your colleague to leave. I'll only talk to you alone. Ling Dunya didn't flinch. She was confident in her own strength and felt no threat from the man before her. She signaled for her partner to exit, leaving the two of them in silence. She clicked her pen, ready to record. It's just us. Now, can you cooperate? Gender: you are sick. Xiao Yifeng said, his voice suddenly grave. Boom. The table rattled under her hand again. You really don't know what's good for you. Watch your tone. I'm telling the truth, Xiao Yifeng insisted, leaning forward with a solemn expression. Your right knee suffered a serious injury. Most of the time it feels normal, but when the pain flares up, it pierces straight into the bone. It's nearly unbearable. He settled back, waiting for the inevitable look of shock to wash over her face. To his confusion, she only looked mildly surprised, far from the stunned reaction he expected. If you don't treat this immediately, You'll need an amputation within 6 months just to save your life, he added, exaggerating the symptoms to heighten her fear. Oh, and then what? Ling Dunya asked flatly. I can heal you. Give me half a month, and I'll have you cured by hand. And how would you do that? She asked with a sneer. No medicine required. Just a combination of acupuncture and massage. Xiao Yifeng swallowed instinctively as he spoke. Can you do it with just acupuncture? She asked casually. Acupuncture alone won't clear the rot, Xiao Yifeng lied. With his mastery, needles would be more than enough, but he was determined to add the massage to the regimen. Can you do it with just massage? Ling Dunya's brows furrowed in disgust. It turns out you're afraid of needles, Xiao Yifeng said with a serious nod. Massage alone works, but the treatment will take over 2 months. Haha. Boom. Ling Dunya struck the metal tabletop so hard her palm left a faint indentation in the steel. Xiao Yifeng jumped, his mind racing to understand her fury. Surely a bit of physical contact was a small price to pay to avoid a wheelchair. Why was she so resistant? Across town, Wang Haoran felt his phone vibrate, with a system notification. Ding. The host's behind-the-scenes manipulation has caused the protagonist's medical routine to fail. 200 villain points awarded. You brat, Ling Dunya spat, her eyes full of contempt. You're young, but your mind is a sewer. You're full of dirty thoughts. She stood up and snapped handcuffs around his wrists. Since you refuse to cooperate, you can sit here. I'm detaining you for 47 hours, and I'll be back to interrogate you on the 48th. She walked to the wall, turned the air conditioner to its lowest setting, and stepped out, slamming the heavy door behind her. Hey, beauty, wait. I'm telling you the truth. Xiao Yifeng shouted at the door. Why don't you believe me? Hey, come back. The silence of the room settled over him. A feeling of suffocation rose in his chest. Despite the tight security, he knew he could break out if he truly wanted to, but Qin Kai's warning held him back. He couldn't risk becoming a fugitive. Minutes ticked by, and the temperature plummeted. Xiao Yifeng began to shiver. He focused his internal strength, circulating his qi to speed up his blood flow and stave off the frost. Damn it, he cursed under his breath. My internal strength will only last 20 hours at this rate. That woman has a beautiful face but a heart of stone. She's trying to freeze me out. He attributed the failure entirely to her stubbornness, oblivious to his own transparency. He had tried to use his status as a doctor to take advantage of her, and he was lucky she hadn't slapped him. But Xiao Yifeng, a self-proclaimed master of the world, cared little for a woman's perspective. He simply saw her as ignorant and ungrateful. The following night, after evening self-study ended, Wang Haoran dropped Song Zhenyu off at her apartment, before heading back toward the hotel. A message from his private investigator flickered on his screen. It was about Fang Heng. The boy had successfully identified another masterpiece on Furukawa Street. Buyers had offered him nearly 4 million yuan on the spot, but just like before, he had refused to sell. He had hailed a taxi and left with the painting. The investigator was still following, waiting for a final destination. Suddenly, a conversation crackled through Haoran's Bluetooth headset. He was listening in on Fang Suan's phone. Hey, Xiao Heng, what is it? Sister, are you off work yet? Just finished. I'm heading to the hospital to see Mom. Why? I have a surprise for you. Wait for me downstairs at your office. I'm in a taxi now. I'll pick you up and we can go to the hospital together. Okay, I'll wait. The line went dead. Change of plans, Haoran told his driver. Go to Kongming Hospital. He knew from the investigators' reports that Fang Suan's mother was a patient there. 10 minutes later, the car pulled up to the hospital gates. Haoran stopped at a nearby vendor to buy a large assortment of fresh fruit before heading inside. He navigated the sterile hallways until he found the correct ward. Fang Suan and her brother hadn't arrived yet. In the bed lay a woman with dull, sallow skin that was beginning to fester in places. An unpleasant, sickly odor hung in the air around her. Drawing on the knowledge of the Supreme Poison Sutra, Haoran surveyed her condition. Even with regular dialysis, she wouldn't survive 3 months. Her only hope was a kidney transplant, provided a matching donor could be found. To be continued. Hope you liked today's video. Join the community by subscribing and dropping a like. I'll be back with another update tomorrow. See you then.